All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and call this City Council workshop to order for Tuesday, January 9, 2018. Let the record state that the entire council is present for our meeting today. First item is our DS items, DS 18-001, discuss agenda items for regular City Council meeting of January 16, 2017. And the first thing on there is our minutes, MN 18-001, consider minutes of regular City Council meeting of December 19, 2017. Any questions or comments on those? Seeing none, we're going to move on to our resolutions. RS 18-001, consider memorandum resolution approving the revisions to the bylaws for the Killeen Economic Development Corporation. And Mrs. Davis.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. With you tonight, we have Charlie Watts, who is the president of the Killeen Economic Development Corporation, and he is here to present to you the changes that the KEDC board would like to see to their bylaws. And as part of that process, it does require council approval. So Mr. Watts is here to go through those requested changes with you today. Right.
Welcome, Mr. Watts.
Good evening, Council. We basically have very fundamental changes to our bylaws, but any changes to the bylaws require City Council approval. And to best describe to you what we've done here, we've taken the bylaws that were written in the 1990s and brought them up to the 21st century. And this, we could not have done this without the help and assistance of Mrs. Davis and her help at the City Attorney's Office, and at this time we'd like to really express how much we appreciate their efforts in this. Now, I think everyone has a copy of the changes that were made. And if you'd like, I can answer any questions. I can go down to each one. Are you doing that on there? Okay.
Yeah, he's got the PowerPoint there, so if you want to just go ahead and do the PowerPoint on it.
Okay, let's see here. Section 3.02, the number of directors can be changed by the City Council rather than by amending the bylaws. Can only be changed by the City Council is the key part there. Various sections there. Time frames for notice of a meeting are reduced to 72 hours rather than the 5 or 10 days previously reported or written in the bylaws. Also, legal references to the Texas Open Meetings Act have been updated to meet the current state statutes. Section 5.02 clarifies that the KEDC, and that chairman should be scratched and said president. That's an error, and I want to go ahead and correct that, but clarifies that the KDC president has authority to designate members of committees. Section 5.05 directs the treasurer to cause the executive director to keep full and accurate accounts rather than having the secretary do so. Section 6.01 allows notices to be sent by mail. I mean, to give you an example, I think our old bylaws said telegraph was one of the ways of communication. So that's what we're trying to, those type of things are what we're correcting here. Let's see, next section, is that? Bylaws may only be amended or altered if approved by a two-thirds vote of the KEDC directors and further approved by the City Council. Again, anything we do has to be approved by the City Council. The KEDC Board of Directors approved the proposed revisions at a regular meeting held on October 31st, 2017. The KDC Board of Directors and City staff recommend approval of these proposed revisions.
All right. Any questions in reference to the bylaws
Oh, well,
for Mr. Watts?
Mr. Watts, I have a question, I'm a little confused. Under the bylaws may be amended or altered if approved by 2/3 vote of the KEDC director and further approved by the city council. Did you say anything? Anything by the?
Any changes
Any
to the
changes
bylaws?
to the bylaws?
Yeah, our board of directors has to approve by a 2/3 vote.
Yes,
and
sir.
then it has to come before you, the city council, to actually be approved.
Only, and that's including just the bylaws?
Yes, ma'am, just the
Yes, sir.
bylaws.
Okay, I just wanted to know that.
Right.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Mrs. King?
Mr. Mayor, in section 5.02, and designate members of the committee, is that the EDC or is that just the subcommittee?
Well, that would be if the president, whoever's holding that position, chooses to create a committee to study something, then that's what it's referring to, the committee of the board of directors.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Just a concern, I would like to see something in the future where councils, the full body is notified. And I don't want to open up a can of worms, but I was blindsided. I was in H-E-B shopping for groceries when I found out about the new chemical plant. And I think that if KDC has authority to approve those type of contracts without further approval by the council, at least it needs to be a grace period where the city council is notified, informed, and educated on the deal before it's put out to the public. And I think that's fair as a member of the governing body. And again, I understand the difference between city council, EDC. I understand the roles of EDC and the role of the Chamber of Commerce. I just want to make sure that I'm fully informed so that when citizens ask me questions about a chemical plant or any other contract or deal that's been agreed upon by EDC, I have all the facts and answers, and I can defend it, especially if it's good for the taxpayers.
That's something just to keep in mind for the future, because I don't know if that's anything that's covered here on the bylaws, is it?
No, sir, it's not, and that would have to come from the city council.
Yeah, that's something that we can bring for discussion at a later date, so.
So if I email something in,
Yeah, just bring it, send it
it
to
shouldn't
the.
take that long. It's just basically a grace period is all I'm asking for, just so I'm informed.
Anybody else?
I just want
Ms.
to add to
Fleming.
Mr. Johnson. I do agree with him on that because I was a little confused on this when I read this today as well, because if we to approve only just the bylaws and when you have two city council members on your board can approve things, and I just wanted to make sure that the full council is aware of everything. And under section 3-02, could we add to be changed only, to put only in there, the number of directors can be changed only by the city council, rather than amending the bylaw? Should that word only be in there?
Well, it's,
Is that
I'll
necessary?
defer to city attorney, but in my opinion, it's saying the same thing.
Sometimes
Nothing can be done
words
without,
means a lot, sir.
yes, ma'am, nothing can be done without the city council's approval.
Right. Because I think that would be a strong thing to put in there, and it means a lot.
Ms. Davis, is that something that
Can be
should?
changed only. I think that needs to be added in there.
It's not a big change from what's already in here, and I agree with Mr. Watts. That's what it says, but if it makes you feel better to write the word only in there, there's no reason why it can't be.
It's not going to make a difference. It's just,
Well, I feel like it makes a difference to me.
well, then
That's
we can
why I
put it in.
I feel like it needs to be in there.
We're going to do it
Words
just
means
for
a
you,
lot.
Ms. Fleming.
But
So we're going to do it just for you.
Thank you. I
All right.
appreciate that. I'm not being smart, but
No, that's
open a
it.
can of worms, but you know,
Just
this
put
is.
the word
really-
only. I don't think it's going to change anything, so.
I mean, I've heard one of the other council members talk about shall and all those words, so I mean, that's a
All right.
word that's strong too. Thank you.
Anything
sir.
else?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Harris?
Of course, I have to say, just, you know, I concur with my fellow council members here about notification and so forth, but I was just reading over your bylaws in general, and, you know, just that was my first opportunity to actually get a chance to read over them. So, and I just have a few, you know, just a few questions about some of them, just for clarification. Now, in section, and at the same time, if something, you know, comes up, then it can be modified if it needs to be, or, you know, however it may go. But in section 1.03, it says approval or advice and consent of the governing body. It says, to the extent that these bylaws refer to any approval, so this is what you're talking about earlier, that we have we only have, as far as bylaws, that's when the city council has to approve those. Only bylaws, nothing else though, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's what that meant right there. That's what I was, okay, then in section 3.03, it was talking about appointments, and it said non-directors shall be appointed by the governing body as provided by these bylaws. And it goes on talk about 3 from the city council, the city of Killeen, mayor, and city council, 3 from the Great Killeen Chamber of Commerce, and so forth. And let's see, I had a question on there. When was the last time the council appointed members from the outside of council members? I'm not going to worry about that one. But term of office, it talks about the 1-year terms and the 2-year terms. And I was going to say, I was going to ask you if you can distinguish between member terms, because as I was looking, I'll go ahead and read it. It said the 9 directors shall initially serve for staggered terms, 1 director for each represented organization for 1 year, 1 director from each represented organization for 2 years, and 1 director from each represented organization for 3 years. The initial term for directors within each represented organization shall be determined by drawing lots or similar random selection methods. And so I guess I was just, so as far as the one that served 1 year, is that, have those 1-year terms? I'm kind of confused.
Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
go ahead.
I had when I first read these, I had the same thought, I think a very good point. That was when the KD was first created. In other words, when it was very first created, you didn't want everybody to have 3-year terms.
Right, right.
So what they did is drew names out, or lots, they called it, and that person or that position got a 1-year term, and then it was up. And then you got 2-year terms, and you had some people that drew 3-year terms. So in the first 3 years, they did it that way to make it when it would come up every 3 years, you'd make a change.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does, it does. Okay. So I was just kind of like.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay. Let's see. I got to switch this one here. Okay. And then as far as meeting places, this jumps to section 3.06 is B. It says, it talks about the board of directors may hold meetings, both regular and special, within the state of Texas. And this basically, where are meetings generally held, just in case citizens don't really know.
Good question. Yeah, the meetings are generally held in the Greater Killeen Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors room.
Okay.
And right behind the annex building there on Avenue D. And those, and of course, all of our meetings are posted. And we meet all the legal items that we have to meet from that standpoint. Right.
And that's what I was going to ask next about the posting. The regular meetings talked about the posting, but it said 72 hours before the meeting and noticed by mail or email. So is it more than mail and email, or is it like posted?
Well, I think at one time it used to really say telegraph.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can believe that. Yeah. And so we're just changing. We want to change that to the 21st century to mail and email. I'm not sure, and email was around when these were first written.
So are those the only 2 ways, though, by mail and email, meeting notifications, or are there more ways that y'all publicize as well?
I'm going to let Ms. Davis answer that, because they may be getting illegal, but I think you need something in writing, is my opinion.
Okay.
Right. They do follow the Open Meetings Act in
Okay.
making the required notices, and that's what 3.06A says, that they follow that.
Okay, so that's in the paper as well. Okay, okay.
I don't know if it's in the paper. I don't think it's required to be in the paper.
No.
It's posted, at their place of business. I can't remember what their exact requirements are off the top of my head.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so I was just looking for, make sure that, there's maximum notification if, possible and everything like that, yeah. I mean, just like when we do with our meetings.
Correct.
Okay, let's see. In Article 5, 5.01 is, talks about the notification of officers and so forth, and the vacancies and needing to be filled. And so I had down here, it says, you find the beginning of the sentence here. Any vacancy occurring in any office by reason of death, resignation, removal, or otherwise shall be filled by a vote of the majority of the directors present and voting at the meeting at which the quorum exists, provided that the notice of intention to act upon the question of electing such officer shall be given to each director at least 72 hours before the date of the meeting. And so my question is, will the statement be put out before the 72 hours to notify the public of a pending vacancy and a need to fill it?
Okay, Ms. Davis, please correct me, but I thought that this was referring to vacancy of officers.
Yeah, that
not
one.
vacancy of members of the KDC board. Those vacancies have to be filled by the partner entity,
Okay.
City of Killeen or KIF or the Greater Killeen Chamber of Commerce. So so we're talking about if an officer.
Yes, it says officers. Yes,
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 sir.
yes.
Does that answer your question?
Okay, okay, yeah, okay, you're good. All right. Okay, let's see here.
Almost done, Mr. Harris?
Oh, yeah, yep, just almost done. All right. When it says waiver of notice, what does that mean when it says whenever any notice is required to be given under the provisions of the statutes of the Articles of Incorporation? But it's in Article 6, Section 6.02. But I just want, what does waiver of notice mean? I mean,
Well, in the event there had to be an emergency meeting, and again, I'd like to lean on Ms. Davis to help me out there, but in the event of there's an emergency, let's see here, whenever. I'll take that back. That's a different article. My definition of that is if someone chose not to be notified in a certain by email or another way, if they sign the document saying they do not care to be notified in that form or fashion, then that relieves the board of directors of any liability from that standpoint. Am I close?
Yes, you're right, but that would not apply to required notices by the Open Meetings Act.
Okay.
Those can't be waived. This is only talking about if you as an individual have a right to be notified by a certain manner, by the bylaws, you could in writing say, you know, you told me about it verbally, I'm good with that, and I'm signing away my right to be notified.
Yeah, because that was real general, so that's why I was asking about that one.
Another
So,
great question.
yeah, so that may possibly need to be made more specific to.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, and I'm skipping a few pages.
Is that it?
Let's see. I think this is the last one right here. I think page 10 is empty. Nope, it has one question. Two more questions.
Okay.
All right. Okay, in section 9.06, said the board of directors, and just like I said, I just had to ask this question. Just kind of made me wonder. The board of directors may accept on behalf of the corporation any contribution, gift, bequest, or device for the general purpose, or for any special purpose of the corporation. And my question on this one was, when I read it, I was just curious about, is there any fear of, since this is so open and unspecified as far as the guidelines are so open and unspecified, is there any concern that, you can receive any gifts, anything? Is there a safeguard in place to make sure it's not?
It's a fair question. Unfortunately, it has never happened, but
Right.
I think what we're talking about there is if we had a bequest of land that could be used by KDC, if someone wanted to leave their money to the KDC, things like that. So I don't know if that satisfies your question. Ms. Davis, do you have any assistance on that?
I think the key there is it's not like any personal, it's not for a person, it's for the corporation. And
Yeah,
sometimes you have to donate land, and
Oh, yeah, I
so
understand.
things like that.
Yeah, because I understand that, but, but my thought just I think about politics in general. And
You're thinking about personalized, somebody's going to
so,
put that
but,
in their pocket.
But
It
even,
does say that the board of directors can accept it, not an individual director, so it would still require a public meeting and a majority vote of the board at a public meeting. So
Okay.
there's no, under the table dealings.
right, because, I was just concerned about how broad it was, but, just, because
Valid point, I agree.
you gave specifics, but
Yeah.
it's just so broad.
It's very broad.
And
Is that the last one?
this is the last one right here, coming up. Okay, now, let's see. It says, as far as your audits and everything like that, it says books and records. This is 9.11, and it says the corporation shall keep and correct books and so forth. But my question was, or is rather, can your books be inspected by or open to the city and/or its governing body? Because I know y'all, you do it internally, but if the city wanted to look
Yeah, I
at it.
think our minutes are online, I'll double check that. And of course, we're a public entity, And I don't know what all the rules and regulations are with KEDC. I would think they mirror the city of Killeen. Okay. Am I close?
So the books, so all the accounting of the books and everything would be public and made open?
But I'm pretty sure our minutes are online, minutes of the meetings, and but I'll check that. And then as far as financial books and things like that, I'm sure we're open to all the open record laws and things like that.
Okay. All right. Hey, I appreciate it. Like I said, I wasn't trying to get you anything like that. I just read through it and I just had the questions.
Very,
so.
yeah, very good question.
But I appreciate it, though.
And
Thank
I appreciate you, and I appreciate everything the city council does.
All right. Well, thank you. Mr. Johnson?
I have a question for the city attorney. I just want to clarify, as I'm working on this language, would this something that can be included in here, or would it be in each agreement? How would that work?
You're talking about the grace period?
Yeah, the grace period.
That would need to be in the contract, not in the bylaws.
In the contract.
That's in September, correct? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, that contract.
Yeah, our annual agreement, or I guess biannual agreement that we have with you.
Incorrect.
All right. Mr. Okrie?
Yes, thank you, Mr. When was the KDC established in Killeen?
What year?
Yes.
I believe it's 1990.
1990.
I think it's some
Am I correct?
part of that power slide
And it
there.
was established by Texas legislative law, right?
Yes, well, I assume we had to be approved, everything had to be approved, and articles of incorporation, et cetera. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Rivera?
I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to you and your board. I think I've seen a lot of boards around Killeen and in other cities, and I believe one of your boards was one of the most professional boards I've seen in many years. And I'm very grateful for what EDC does for the city also as well.
Thank you, Councilman Rivera. Thank you.
And it was 1990. In 1990, the city of Killeen authorized the creation of the KEDC, so 1990.
Mr. Blair was the city mayor during that time.
Well, Mr. Watt, we appreciate all the KEDC does, and I know I'm on that, and hopefully, in the near future, I think that we've always had a very transparent council here, and if there's any questions, I know that we're always welcome to bring those forth and even, be part of that process. So at any time there's any other council members that would like to be part of that process, either making those meetings or something, then by all means, we're always open to that. So it's not like a secret agenda or anything that we're trying to do there. So even though you're not on that committee, and hopefully, in the near future you can be, but even though you're not, as mayor, I can tell you, you're always welcome to be part of that process, because I know they're not trying to hide anything there, especially from the leadership here. So with that, Mr. Watts, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
All right, moving on to our next item. We're moving on to public hearing, PH 18-001. Hold a public hearing regarding proposed substantial amendment to the 2016-17 Annual Action Plan describing use of funds and authorizing application for an allocation of Community Development Block Grants Fund. And this is the first of two public hearings. Mrs. Hinkle, welcome.
Happy New Year, Mayor and council members.
New Year.
Happy New Year. If you will remember back with me to November of last year, I brought to you an item related to the Girl Scouts, and they returned their grant funds to the city. And I had recommended during that time that the city open up an interim application process for that $209,248 for a public facility and improvement type project. So that's what this action item or agenda item is for you tonight. So there are three main components to this agenda item, the first being the amendment to the annual action plan. And because the proposed allocation is a change in purpose, location, and beneficiaries, there must be an amendment to the plan and a 30-day comment period. The second component is the two required public hearings, and the third is the consideration of the recommendation from the Community Development Advisory Committee that will lead to the expenditure of the funding in order to meet the timeliness test and spending of those federal funds. In November, We discussed that mid-year, or the interim allocation, would be necessary to continue meeting the timeliness and spending of the federal funds. We advertised the availability of the funds on November the 19th in 2017 and received 3 applications for funding. The CDAC committee did meet on December the 18th and recommended 1 application for funding, with that one being the restroom and entry renovations to the Bob Gilmore Center. And here are a couple of photographs for you that shows the current condition of the center. You will see that the current conditions don't meet the ADA requirements, and with this proposal, that they would be after the renovations are made. So in summary, there's $209,248 available in CDBG funding from that canceled project from the Girl Scouts. An amendment and public hearings are required from our citizen participation plan, and CDAC has recommended the Bob Gilmore Center restroom and entry renovations project. And then after that second public hearing on February the 13th, it's recommended that the proposed project be approved for funding. And I'm happy.
Yes, I am.
Are you happy?
Mr. Oakley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say, Ms. Hinkle, to let the board know this is a good outcome for them, because when I visit there, they do talk about that compliance, and it's, I guess the pipes are turning green now or something. But just thankful that they saw fit to reprogram this money for use at the Gilmore Center to make these improvements.
Mrs. Nash King.
Thank you, sir. I am so happy. I know I call about, 20 times a day. And Mr. Williams, I thank you also because this money is going toward a worthy cause. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Mr. Johnson.
I have a question for Brett.
Mr. Williams.
Pretty quick. Are you able to provide me with a list of needed repairs and renovations? Reason why I ask is that I have a PR campaign I would like to get both of your gentlemen's buy-in, and I think this would be a great time to ask the citizen for a dollar-for-dollar match. I just want to know what else is needed.
Complete needs assessment
for
the Bob Gilmore Senior Center?
And I think this is the perfect opportunity.
Yes, sir.
To get the citizens to buy in and match every dollar that they're getting for CDAC.
Okay. Yes, sir.
If you can provide that with me, and then I stop by.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. We love campaigns. I say good luck with that campaign. We love campaigns. Brett's smiling. He's like, bring some more money. Yeah.
I would like to say something.
Any questions for Ms. Hinkle? Ms. Fleming.
I would just like to comment, Ms. Hinkle, for everything you've done, and I also in favor of everything that you're doing for the Gilmore Center, because it's very well needed. The seniors down there need a better place and everything to go, and it's a great place, and thank you for everything you've done. Okay.
All right. Any more? Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Ms. Hinkle. Moving on, back to the DS items. DS 18-002. Discuss infrastructure to support the proposed KISD school bond. Mr. Olson, this is you.
We started talking about this several meetings ago, and this discussion today is intended to take it for another step forward to show the City Council what infrastructure we believe would be necessary to support the bond, and give you some indication of the general parameters for financing it, and the process, a little bit about the process for carrying this forward. So with that, I'm going to ask David to come forward. He's got a large map we need to lay out and have a discussion about.
Welcome, Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Okay, so what we have on this map, I'll walk through the legend, which is kind of off to the side here. If you pulled it up from the city's website, you would see that. But you have 2 roadways identified in blue. Those are roadways that we are anticipating a need within a 5-year cycle to improve should additional schools be constructed on this roadway, in this vicinity. The 2 roadways that are identified in green there You'll see West Tremere and Featherline are those two. Those two roadways are roadways that we anticipate are beyond a 5-year window. However, they will be directly impacted by the KISD bond. So starting with Chaparral here, we'll walk through the information that's laid out there. You see a couple of blue circles on there on either end. What you see there is a small one on your left side indicates the portion of Chaparral Road owned and maintained by the city of Killeen. That's 500 feet, or if we're talking about it in terms of miles, it's 6/100ths of a mile. End to end, Chaparral Road is 6.64 miles. Of that, you have the 6/100ths that City of Killeen is responsible for. Bell County owns and maintains 5.88 miles, and there's an additional 7/10ths of a mile that is located within the jurisdiction of the City of Harker Heights. You see some variation in the cost dollars there. That's largely related to the fact that the final alignment for the right-of-way for Chaparral Road is not nailed down yet. That would have to come with the engineering study and design. So what's left in there is of that $23 million, there's approximately $3 million in that cost associated with right-of-way acquisition. We could expect to see that cost as little as somewhere around $1 million, or we could go for the full $3 million depending on the final alignment and the landowners that we end up dealing with in that situation. We've gone with a low and a high estimate there. What you see on this map gives you your high estimate for right-of-way acquisition being the variable. Pretty well any alignment we choose, the construction cost stays about the same, and that cost has a built-in engineering design, surveying, environmental study of approximately $2 million. When you move over to East Tremere, that is the other road that's inside of the 5-year window. It's a $7 million project cost. Of that, you've got approximately $700,000 associated with engineering design, surveying, environmental studies. And we have a smaller number there of $200,000 for right-of-way acquisitions necessary. And then the remaining of that dollar amount is construction costs. What we can expect to see right now, we know there are 4 proposed school sites along Chaparral Road in various locations. The quickest build is the elementary school. It's a little off of Chaparral, north of Chaparral there. That one is expected in fall of 2019 to open. For an elementary school, we're expecting around 1,200 trips per day to be generated as a result of an elementary school that has approximately 1,000 kids enrolled one way or the other. We know that there's potential for a second elementary school south of Chaparral somewhere as well, but there's not a final site laid out for that yet. Again, around 1,000 students generates about 1,200 trips per day. With a high school at 2,250 students, that's just north of a 6A high school. You can expect to see traffic generation of 3,900 trips per day, and these are all estimated trips based on the Institute for Traffic Engineers general reports that are released. And with a middle school enrollment of approximately 1,000, you can expect to see 1,290 trips per day associated with a middle school. So as you total all that up, you get well north of 7,000 to 8,000 trips per day associated with schools there, which is in excess of what Chaparral Road can handle currently. We see the bulk of our traffic on Chaparral and East Tremere right now, and that's why those 2 roads are identified as the top 2 priorities. I think with that, we would be best to answer any questions you may have at this time, and then we can discuss further.
All right, questions? Mr. Harris.
First question is, when I'm looking at Harker Heights, so are you saying that we're going to pay for that road out in Harker Heights?
No, we've had initial meetings with the City of Harker Heights, with Bell County, and we would pursue a joint venture where Killeen took the lead on the project, but each entity, we would hope, would be responsible for their portion.
Okay, so Harker Heights, so would we put some of the bill for the road, the part of Chaparral Road in Harker Heights, or would Harker Heights just be responsible for it on their own? I mean, because I know you said we're taking the lead, but I mean, does that mean we're taking a financial lead as well, or what do we, I mean, in what way are we taking the lead?
I can't directly speak to that. It'd probably be better to let Mr. Olson.
We would have to enter into an agreement with both the county and with Harker Heights that would bind us all to financial portions of that, and each entity, Harker Heights specifically, would pay for the cost of that piece of road, the full cost. Okay. And I think it's important to state, or perhaps state again, Chaparral, for the most part, Chaparral is not within the corporate limits of the city of Killeen. So we actually only own, if you will, certain small portions of that road.
So I guess that's the next question. So with the county, with that being a county road, how much is the county, if anything, are they willing to contribute to the construction of, or the expansion or construction of Chaparral?
Preliminarily, they are willing to pay for building a road to their county standard, which basically is going to be a 2-lane road. Okay. And we need 4 or 5 lanes.
Okay, so I guess the question is, I mean, I'm just curious now. So if they paid for 2 lanes of the, if they paid for 2 lanes of the road, going east to west, would we be able to pay for the other 2 lanes? But they pay for 2 lanes, we pay for 2 lanes. Is that how it could work, or is that?
That's basically how it would work.
Okay.
Yes. Now the details of all that have not yet been worked out at all.
I guess in the let's see, because I see one of the KISD schools. I guess I'm curious because one of them is outside of our ETJ, or is that both the high school and the? I mean, they're like right there as far as our ETJ right there. So it looks like the.
It's all inside of our ETJ.
I mean, well, not the ETJ. It's in our ETJ, but outside of our city limit, rather. I'll say, like the one off of Chaparral there, and I'm not quite sure if the high school is in our city limits. Okay, it's barely in there, but I see one outside of the ETJ. Do you know what the reason was for putting it outside? I mean, outside of our city limits. Do you know what the reason was for putting it outside of our city limits, and rather in our ETJ?
No, I don't. Okay. I don't know what went into the school district's decision to do that.
Then. The last thing I have to ask myself, because I'm looking at it, and as I'm looking at the roads that we're thinking about taking out a bond for, it just has to cross my mind. These are the same roads that contractually right now we're obligated to take care of, and it just curiosity is I mean I guess if you want to say is it just coincidence, or is it just that we're contractually obligated to take care of it through the mud, but at the same time, KISD does this, and we have to build infrastructure, so we take out a bond that will allow us to fulfill our contractual obligations, because as of current, we don't have the money to do it, but we take out the bond, we're able to do it, and I'm just, like I said, I don't know if it's coincidence or if it's just, I don't know, but so there's the estimated bond amount is 45 or 46 million, or what is it again?
What we're proposing at this time is a $30 million cost that would complete Chaparral Road. It would complete East Tremere Road, with the idea that we do have potential funding partners associated with these roadways. Any underruns for these projects could then be applied to additional roadways that we anticipate are outside of that 5-year window, but are in need of expansion as well associated with these improvements.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Okrie.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Olson, as far as with this portion out here that's adjacent to Harker Heights, if we enter into agreement, it'll be similar to what we did with the hike and bike trail, where funding was sought through the K-Tempo as far as the state or federal block grant funding. So it would be something on that magnitude.
It would be similar to that, with the exception that you would likely see a financial contribution from the city of Harker Heights as well.
Okay. And you did mention that the county would, any improvements to that road would be to, because there's a difference between a county road and a road inside a major thoroughfare or whatnot. So they would, so it wouldn't be per se dividing lanes or whatnot. It would be built to the standard that the city would, that we would require in the future.
Correct. A county road standard would be two 12-foot lanes, one each direction, with 2-foot shoulders on either side. And the city standard, what we're proposing for this is a 5-lane section with continuous center turn lane.
Right. And that's what it's going to require as the city grows.
Correct.
So it wouldn't be, would it be physically prudent to accept in the process of doing the 2-lane road, and then, I don't know, maybe it may be a phase or something like that, that within that 2-lane, I don't know the works of that, but you would generally take on a project that if you need a 5-lane road, you would build it to the standard that's needed for the future.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Olson, is that it?
I think there's one other point I would like to make to the council, and that is, obviously, this issue came up quickly for us. We do not have a design. We do not have a proposed right-of-way established. If we move forward with this, we're going to have to go to a bond election before we have the design or even necessarily the right-of-way alignment selected. So I want you to understand there's still a lot of work to do in terms of actually putting a project together. And from a bond election standpoint, we would end up estimating high to make sure we had enough money to do the most expensive alternative that we might select. And then we might not select the most expensive alternative. We might select one that's less expensive, which means that we may not spend all of the bond money. Or we may structure it in a way so that if there were money left over from the bond, we could apply it perhaps to one of those green streets. So we're very early in this process, and there are a lot of things about it that we do not understand and don't know yet. So we would be moving ahead, seeking council's approval and voters' approval to be very transparent about it, but to walk into a situation that we have not been able to completely plan our way through yet.
I think this is it's going to be a process where, you know, it's something that I believe has to happen because of our growth, and that's something that I think sometimes we didn't anticipate as quickly growing. When I was doing my numbers this past week on the housing, it's just incredible. You know, we have like 2 months worth of inventory, which on the average, you know, a balanced market is like 6 months, and it's just, and this is during the holiday season. And then you look at the amount of kids in a room. I was talking to some families that are coming in here, and one of them was on the school there off West Cliff. They say they have, their classrooms are like 35 kids in a classroom or something like that. And it's just, it's something that you don't anticipate, but you have to prepare for it. And so that's what we got to look at as we grow into the future. You know, this is something that definitely, you know, has to be planned, but, you know, I don't know. Mr. Okrie.
Yes, and that's the thing that I want to, I think Ms. Olson said we don't have anything definite, but what we do know is that we are growing, and that the requirement to educate our kids and relieve the overcrowding, that's something that we're going to do. It's not might or maybe, we will do it according to free and accessible public education. And this infrastructure that's required to educate our children is something that we will do according to the laws of this state. So I think we, I don't know where we are in the process, but we would have to, I believe it would be wise to do what we need to do to run parallel as far as this expansion to take care of, because that's an additional overlay. Yeah, we're in the city, but then we also have a district, and so that's an additional overlay, because with the houses, we don't know who's living in housing, but they are showing up at our schools, and we have to provision ourselves in this aspect as far as the infrastructure is concerned to meet the demand that's required.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Kilpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question for the city manager. Contingency. What occurs at if the KISD bond is not approved all in full and ours is?
I think we have to simply say what we're going to do. And what I would propose to the council is that if the KISD bond is not approved, that we, and ours is, that we don't have to spend it. I mean, I guess we could if we chose to. We simply need to take a position and let the public know what we would do in that instance, and then do it. And if your desire is to not spend the money, then we wouldn't spend it. We'd make a contract, a verbal contract with the public, if you will, or we could actually write something into the bond election, depending on how you wanted to structure it.
And the only reason why I asked that question is I understand the necessity of it, the need, and we've got to go forward with it, in my opinion, this council person's opinion. But it does place another burden. We just passed a budgetary policy which said we want to have interest in sinking down to 20%. This would, and we're currently at 36%, and so this would only increase it to probably 42%. So we would be, the necessity because of its the nature, we would have to be able to support that growth. And I agree with Councilman Oakley that growth is coming. You're not going to stop it. It's going to be there. So we have to look forward to that. But I would also like to see a provision or something where we would limit the amount that only what we would have to use to ensure that the physical responsibility of us not increasing that interest in sinking obligation greater the percent than our physical policy does. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Follow up on your question real quick. Is there a way, because I know that if we put it up for election, does it have to be two separate, or can we combine it as one?
It has to be two separate votes. Yes, sir.
Mrs. Nash King?
I think Ms. Fleming was first.
Mrs. Fleming, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You can go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to kind of piggyback on what Mr. Olson said. The project that we're about to take on, and we need to really remember that this is a great project that Mr. Olson just said. We've got to educate not only the council to really understand what we're about to take on, like Mr. Olson said. We have to study it. We know the city is growing. We all know that each and every day. It's growing drastically. And to take on a project like we're talking about, we all have got to really understand what we're going to do. We got to understand everything, even from the meetings we had with Mr. Olson the other day, the things that we were about to undertake. We've got to really know what we're doing. And the council has got to really understand what we're doing before we even start voting on these things. We can't just come and just present these things and not understand what Mr. Olson is trying to do. So it's an understanding, educational factor, and and everything that we need to support him on this. And it's a great thing that we know that we're about to undertake, and we need to kind of look at this very carefully before we go into so many of these projects all into one. And I know we're growing, we need to study this, and we need to understand exactly what we're doing as a council. Because sometimes we vote on things, and then the next thing you know is something that we didn't really want, you know? So on that same note, Mr. Mayor, I have a citizen that wants to say something if it's appropriate at this time.
Well, let me go around first, and then we'll go back to it. But with that said, I agree. I think that, you know, you got to get a lot of information, and I know we're up against the time clock because of the elections, but if we need to, I'm all for it. You know, if we need to have more meetings to make sure that you understand this and we get all the information, then I'm all by means for it, so.
I mentioned that at the meeting we had the other day, that just one time, 3 hours is just not enough to really grasp, you know,
and those,
that we really need to know about this, you know, these projects.
And those are real good meetings, and I appreciate the city manager, because I think that when you have a smaller group, and for those of us that really want more information, I think city manager has been very, you know, well informing us and stuff. And so if we need to have those smaller ones, and he's got all that information that he can present, that's a setting that we can do. So you know.
Understanding what we're up against, that's the main thing. We've got to understand what we're doing.
Okay. Mrs. Nash King?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Olson, I also thank you for meeting with us one-on-one. But my concern is we're going to get that knowledge because we get the package, we have the opportunity to study, and like Ms. Fleming stated, that we get to spend time with you, and you are a great teacher, and also Jonathan Olson, Lott. He's also, yeah, he is, Mr. Lott is awesome. My concern is the citizens. As we move forward, the taxpayers, and as Ms. Fleming stated so great, this is we're moving fast. We're growing, we're moving, but we have to keep them informed, whether it's through the media, whether we have forums. We're going to get it. Because, Mr. Olson, you're drilling it, and Mr. Mayor, you're making sure we get it, we get emails, we got it. But our residents, the taxpayers, they need to get it. When they make that vote, they need to know everything just as much as we know, that transparency factor. And that's my greatest concern, that just having it televised or put it on the website, we might want, and I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job, sir, maybe a couple forums as we move forward to make sure they understand the direction we're taking this city and their tax dollars, or we're asking them to give more. Please. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Mr. Harris.
Okay. All right. Not trying to be the doom and gloom one, but even as Councilman Kilpatrick stated about the contingency plan, and his contingency plan is if KISD bond does not pass and ours does. So I have to go on the flip side. What happens if KISD's bond passes, but ours doesn't? What's our contingency plan on that one?
Those are all possibilities that can happen, so.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure what else we can do besides give the voters an opportunity to vote on it. And if it's turned down, then it's turned down. You know, we won't fix the road, which means there's going to be thousands of trips every day by high school students and parents of high school students that are going to be driving on an inadequate, insufficient road. But I don't know what else we can do besides say, we'd like to fix it, but you've got to approve it, public, and if they don't, they don't.
So that's all you can do, and then, you know, once the frustrations are there, then it's something that can be brought back at a later date, so. Mr. Okrie.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I don't know what the contingency plan would be other than for the purpose of the bond, whatever that might be. I know we're not going to go down a road like that. And if the contingency plan is, if a bond is approved, I'm looking on the, we got negative, but I'm bringing the positive. On the positive side is that it's necessary, but the school bond is not approved. Then there are some things that we still need to look at as far as cost. That's gonna escalate year to year to year. But the purpose of the bond, I don't know what the language would be right now. That's very premature on that right now. but I know that that is the purpose of the bond. And it will be a restricted fund as far as I'm saying, as far as I understand. It will be used, the bond will be used for that purpose. And if it's not used, then maybe a council might decide to return the people their money in the form of whatever that increase in the tax rate might be. It would, the prudent thing would be to return the people the money. But I kind of agree with Mr. Olson. I think I hope we will comprehend the magnitude of the growth in our city, and we're going to pay for it now, or it's going to cost more later. This is because I don't think the school district is Killeen ISD, which is including Harker Heights and Nolanville, are pulling these numbers of population projections out of their, you know what. That's just not the way Texas schools are regulated. So these are the numbers that was presented by the school superintendent. I believe they're, unless I'm shown otherwise, they are real. And those projections is that we are going to be required to provide our children a free and accessible public education. If the public don't know that, they can call me and talk to me about it. Because I'm willing to have that conversation for anybody who may not understand or who might be experiencing cognitive dissonance. Because this is something that's ancillary to a growth of a municipality. And I believe, I don't know if we can, and even with the school district, if it does not go through, I don't know. But I'm pretty confident that we are going to be required to do what we need to do as citizens of this city and citizens of this state to provide a free and accessible public education to our children. Thank you.
And I think it starts right here, because you know, we talk about selling it to our citizens, but if we're not bought into it, you know, our citizens are not. So I think what I see today happening, it's more of an education. Mrs. Fleming, I think you're correct that it's part of educating the city council so that in turn we can start educating our citizens as to why or not this needs to happen. But if the city council doesn't buy in, obviously we can't ask the citizens to buy in. And so we have to have, I think, the majority, if not, I'd say a unanimous support of this, realize the importance of it, because it has nothing to do with us in particular or any particular board, or it has to do with, like Mr. Okri said, the importance of our children and our classroom. Otherwise, you know, this wouldn't be proper planning. So this is just part of that planning process. So. Mr. Okri?
It's just one last thing, and I'll use one of Mr. Johnson's statement. If we're not bought into it, we're going to be drug into it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The people, the growth triggers.
We're going to get drug into it.
That's what causes growth. Mr. Rivera.
In a growing city, we need to take fiscal responsibility of what's going on. There's no answer about the Killeen. It's growing very quick. The whole Texas, per se, is growing very quick. It's not only Killeen. All the cities going through the same thing we're going. This staff that we are very blessed with the knowledge they have in order to put us on the map with a plan. The way I hear this is we are the one that need the education to educate our citizens. We are the one I need to make sure we start talking to the people what we're doing. And we are the one that we need to watch each other. They don't use this as a political platform. This needs to be used how we're going to serve our citizens. Anywhere we go, anytime we move, we look for education, quality of life, and job. If we start dreaming and think that you're going to wake up next day and this city's not going to grow, we're going to double pay what we need to be paying very quick. I want to say this one more time, because I heard everybody speaking. Education is great because we need to educate our citizens. They are the tax people. But before we start talking about things that you do not know, let's start getting educated. Because we need this and we need it bad. And not only we need it, public safety personnel needs those roles. It's not only for the kids, it's for the service that we got to provide our citizens. I just hope to God you understand that with the city you live in right now is one of the fast-growing cities in Texas. And if we don't do something real quick, we're going to have a problem in our hand. And the problem is going to be is we're going to pay triple if we continue thinking that this is not going to go through. Change your mind and better start looking at this project as a positive one. Because if you don't, not only are you pulling yourself back, you're holding your citizen and the future citizen in this city. And the education is something that we need anywhere we go. But we still need to provide for those services. If you don't believe me, go down to the citizen and find out what they're looking for. They're looking for better roads. We better start thinking positive, because this is coming, and it's coming hard.
Mr. City Manager, what's our next step here?
Thanks for asking. The school district is on a schedule that requires them to make a decision about the bond, I believe, at their February 13th meeting, in order to get it on the ballot for the May election this year, which means that's the schedule we're on as well. We're going to have to make a decision on whether or not to put this road bond on the May election by February the 13th.
So what information, before then, what information is it that as council we're asking the city manager to provide us, so that, like I said earlier, if we need to have a few other special meetings or workshops prior to then he can do that? So is there anything in particular that we need from the staff or the city manager that you guys know of that before we make a decision? Mrs. Nash King?
Thank you, sir. If we have to have this in place by 13th February, correct?
We have to make a decision. You have to make a decision whether to put it on the ballot in May. You have to make that decision by February 13th.
Okay. With that being said, sir, are we going to have a form or anything for the taxpayers before or after that date, or?
It would be after. I think it would be after the date. Yeah.
That's all I want to know, sir.
Public forums after the February, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other information that we would ask for, anything that the school may have that can help us better have a grip on what's going on? You know, anything?
I think, Mayor, what I would intend to do is to prepare the documentation that you will need to approve and get it in front of the council as quickly as we can, so that then you can debate it and ask specific questions about the documentation, about the ballot language and so forth that would have to be dealt with. I think that may help you ask specific questions once you see it.
How long, what time frame are we looking at there?
I don't know for sure yet. We don't have anything drafted, so
That would be
I'll
under
just tell
30
you
days.
we'll move as quickly as we can.
Mrs. Fleming, go ahead.
Mr. Olson, I would just like to indicate something. It just went through my mind, is that the discussion that we had, and you need to get this on the ballot by the 13th of February. And I'm just trying to make a suggestion. When we do meet, can we meet like in a closed session, the whole council meeting, the whole 7 of us council members, meet together and get this over with, because we do need to work on this right away. We don't need to wait. And if we all can get together and make a decision, I think it needs to be sooner rather than later.
There's certain, and Mrs. Davis can kind of clarify, but there's certain things we can do behind closed, and I don't know if this would fall under one of them. So it's not, so it would have to be an open meeting.
An open meeting, okay,
Yeah.
then let's put it on the agenda soon. We need to do that right away, sir. It's like an
Yes, sir.
emergency.
Yes, ma'am. We'll do it as quickly as we can. We have had conversations, as David indicated, we've had conversations with our potential partners. We've had initial conversations with our bond counsel. We've had initial conversations with consulting engineers that would help us create a design and so forth. So we've done we've done as much as we can up to this point, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. So let me put it together, and I'll try to have something in front of you by our next work session, 2 weeks from now. Okay.
And ultimately, I know just, right off the top, the ultimate question is always going to be cost and how much is it going to cost taxpayers, how much is, so those are the real numbers that we're going to really need, because those are probably the ones you're going to have to explain the most. If it's $3, $4, $5, whatever it is, and is it cost, is this what worth, for the kids to have schools, so things like that. So I know that the big part of this is actually just going to come down to the financial cost of it. So, all right, so with that, Mr. Olson, anything else? The young Mr. Olson.
No, sir.
All right, thank you.
Mayor,
Mr.
Jack would like to speak.
Oh, we got a citizen, I'm sorry, that want to speak, so is everybody, we have a consensus with that? Everybody okay, Mr. Ralston? The council said they're going to give you 3 minutes.
I sure do appreciate it.
And I don't have a clock, so.
Can you talk just 3 minutes?
I can talk for 3 minutes. I'm not
Okay.
going to talk long.
Okay, Steve.
My name is James Ralston. I live at 408 Yates Road. And I've got kind of some questions about this bond issue. I'm thinking that the agenda might have had the items on it a little out of whack, and I'll explain that to you in a minute. We just had a recent assessed value added to our citizens' not tax base, where we're going to be charged for more value for our houses without any particular good reason. Then we're going to have a bond issue from KISD for almost $500 million. And then we're going to have another one from the city that we don't know about. I'm not real sure KISD does a real good job of spending our money anyway. I mean, let me think. Scoreboard, $1 million. You can get a couple of students out there with some pieces of cardboard and some markers and cover that pretty well. I mean, this is not the NFL. Okay? I heard the word safety being used earlier, yet KISD builds flashing signs out on the streets in an area where the students are crossing the roads, so that the drivers come by and look at the flashing signs and are distracted. So far, we've been lucky. Nobody's got run over. But I'm not here to talk about KISD. I'm here to talk about the city.
You got 2 minutes.
Okay. We've got crumbling infrastructure, but we're going to build some more infrastructure. We've got a rising crime rate. Haven't seen any plans to do anything about that other than our good police chief trying to get in some help from the feds. How are we going to pay for the mud? I don't see it in our plan that's going to come up in a minute. We've lowered our emergency money cushion. Now, of course, nothing's going to ever happen in Killeen. Anybody remember Gerald? 10 years apart, 2 tornadoes. History maybe, Waco. Let's see, what was that hurricane that just hit down on the coast? I don't think Houston or those cities have recovered yet. They could have used some more emergency money. But I'm looking at this general fund, long-term projections, and it doesn't have anything in there about the new bond, and it doesn't have anything in there about the mud. But I'm looking here, important items not considered in the fiscal year 18 budget projection. TMRS retirement, deferred street maintenance, deferred capital building maintenance, pay equity for
1 minute.
General government, civil. Okay. We have asphalt deterioration where the streets are falling apart. Mr. Olson has addressed that at length in various meetings. We have major facility shortfalls. We need to replace air conditioner units because we've got the wrong chemicals in them. We've got to replace roofs. They're deferred already. We've got to defer maintenance. And I don't want to forget, we've also, looking at the City of Killeen compensation, the average general employee is below market at 13.29%. The average civil service employee is approximately 7.5% below market. Maybe we should have looked at this before we talked about adding another bond, unless, of course, this is going to be bond number 3 to pay for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the public, you know, these are public hearings, so those are things that when this comes up, they'll have a forum to, you know, make remarks and stuff like that, so. Yeah. All right, moving on. Or do we need a break or anything? We're going to take a 10-minute break. So we'll be back at 6:20. All right, so we're going to go back to our DS items. Next is DS 18-003, and this is City Manager updates on bond refunding and on future discussions. So, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, so on these two items, the first one is basically just a report of what's happened. Several weeks ago, the council gave authorization to refund some bonds and gave parameters within which those decisions could be made. And the bonds have been refunded. If you go to the next page, please. You'll see there a one-page summary of the outcome. You had indicated that that there would need to be at least a minimum of a 5% gain, and it turns out it was a 5.7% gain. You had authorized up to $40 million of refunding. We thought we would refund 30. We ended up refunding 33 million. And in terms of savings, we thought we would save about 1.6 million. It turns out that we're going to save 1.9 million. So everything met the City Council's parameters and exceeded expectations in every category. So I think it was a good decision,
Awesome.
a good choice.
That was great. Any questions? All right. Next item.
The next item is talking about future agenda items. And here's my motivation and here's my concern. We have a lot of things that we need to talk about, most of which are being generated by myself, some of which are being generated by council member requests. And I'm feeling a little sensitive about it because we can't talk about everything at one time. We have limited capacity to do the research and the background information that is needed, and we're moving through them. And I want to make sure that we're moving through them in an order, in the order that the council desires. So I've made a list, which we have on the wall, and which I think Tom is going to put up here on the board so that you can look at it. And I have just a couple of questions. The first one is there anything on the list that shouldn't be there? Is there anything you want to have on the list that is not there? And then I have some dots. Hillary has some dots. I want you to each take some dots and put them on there so that we can determine which of these items are most important to the City Council to be discussed in that order. And so
Mrs. Nash King.
Two that I would like to add on, and one of them is crime and homeless. And also, I didn't see homeless and crime. And I also didn't see anything for youth activities since we had to shut down the hours at the community center. Do we have any other plans for the future for our youth? As last year we discussed, Mr. Mayor, we should bring this to the attention to the council before the summer get here. Well, we in January, so it's coming up on us. So those are some concerns. The crime in our city, homeless, and our youth activities. Do we have anything in place for that, or can we extend the hours at the community center, whatever comes first? That's it.
Anybody else want to add something?
Mr. Mayor, would the Neighborhood Watch program be added into something up there?
I think that falls under crime, because crime actually falls under public safety. So I think everything that encompasses public safety,
awesome then. Thank
that
you.
should be,
Okay. Just
instead of
wanted to
crime,
make
it
sure
should
that
just
was
say
there.
public safety.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anything else? Mr. Johnson?
Just a concern. I thought we did this already.
Yeah.
I thought we set the
I kind of,
top
we
priority
kind of
as
agreed, and I remember it was infrastructure.
infrastructure, public safety, and economic development. So I don't understand why we're doing this again.
Well, and the reason is because, as the city manager says, we get inundated with different requests, and we're trying to just stay focused. I know that there's a lot of issues that come up, and so what we're trying to do is get that consensus from the council of which ones are a priority, you know, especially now and next year. But I know last time we did do that, and we just want to either reassure that we're going in the right direction or change direction, so.
And I will add too, when we talked about it last time, the primary purpose was to help with funding priorities and how we're going to structure the budget. This is to help with what we want to talk about as a council, not necessarily how we want to fund it or how we want to budget for it, but what order do we want to talk about these various things that will ultimately end up in some kind of a policy statement from the council.
And if I may add, I mean, as a council, I think, you know, we do have long-term projects, and then we have these short things, and maybe it may not be a bad idea to do this maybe once and a quarter on the short priorities, because like infrastructure, I know that's always going to be an important one, and I look at that as more of a long-term. It needs to be brought up here and there, but I think that that's always going to have a very important priority. Mr. Johnson, go ahead.
I do understand what we're trying to do here. I just want to ensure that that we don't impede on an individual council member's duties to their constituents. So if they have an item that come up, I think they should still be able to have the opportunity to present it before council. Because at that point, what's the point of having district seats? We should just have everyone's elected at large. If we're just going to set it to where you can't put anything on the agenda. So at the end of the day, we do work for the citizens and the taxpayers.
This is, from my perspective, this is not intended to restrict a council member in any way in terms of putting things on the agenda. It's to give me guidance about where the priorities are so that I can bring these priorities to you in an order that the council wants them brought in. Not my priority, the council's priority.
Yeah. You finished, Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I'm just concerned. I've seen this deteriorate over a period of time. I feel like we're taking an individual power and vote from an individual council person. And so I don't want that to happen. I don't want this to turn to a majority rules where we're degrading the enforce and
we don't want to do that. And as we say, we always say we speak as a council. You know, we don't have individual powers, but I think
again, I understand that. Councilman Harris has put 1,000 items on the agenda. I may not agree with all of them, but I respect his opinion to do that.
Mr. Harris?
I was going to say, basically, and I expressed in our meeting what we had. I basically, like I said, you know, it's one of the other solutions to this is just basically put things up in the order that they come in. And that's my thought. When a council member puts something in, just put up in the order that it comes in. At the same time, like I told the city manager, I mean, of course, he has stuff that's very important that needs to go in there and so forth. But at the same time, to in a timely manner, cycle those agenda items in there as well, so the council members' discussion items can be addressed in a timely manner. Because, like she said, with the how long, Councilwoman Nash, you said 4 months, 5 months. How many months was that?
I'm sorry.
You were talking about something that was it's been how many months since you said the community center? 5 months.
Just address the mayor. Hold on.
I'm sorry. But anyway.
Can I address him?
No. Hold on.
Okay, but I'm sorry. But you know, she said it was some months, and then you know, one of the things I put up in there, you know, even with the MUD actually, municipal utility district, you know, it's been 7 months, And so, and like I said, I told the city manager, I said, I understand we had stuff to do, so I was okay, because we had some pressing stuff that we had to do that were going to take a lot of time. But as we start getting down to the things that aren't as time-consuming but are important but aren't as time-consuming, of course, then I think we should start rotating those things in there and addressing them. But in the end, I think I support just putting them in there in the order that they come. I think that would be the simplest way that would lessen the amount of possible controversy or discussions, and negative discussions related to, okay, are they doing this so they can try to keep this off the agenda? Or, even as Councilman Johnson was expressing the thought of limiting, individual council members' abilities to get things on the agenda and get them addressed in a timely manner. I'm done.
And I think also it's important to make sure, that we don't want to take away anything from the council members, but I think it's also important that as council members, we educate ourselves, because a lot of the issues that I see sometimes bringing up can be found by asking the right person. And sometimes we want a forum to ask a question that could have been asked on the sideline. It could have been asked the city manager, department head, the attorney, and that would have done it, yet we sit here and we discuss it when we don't need to do that because it's already been discussed before. The council made a decision and we just need clarification. And a lot of times, because we may not have all the information we need, instead of asking the right person, we just bring it up. And that's what we're talking about here too, because it's got to be put on an agenda. The staff has to take time out, and the city manager has to put it on his agenda when it could have taken care of somebody else.
I was saying, in response, I agree with you on certain, on some of those things, but in some cases, I would have to say even, as a council member may bring something forward that has been brought forward to ask questions about it because they may have fresh new questions that may, result in more questions. And so, like I say, even if a council member does something like that, if it proves to be, just a complete repeat of what's already been said and nothing new, nothing fresh, then I understand the frustration going on. But if they come in with something new and a new insight of something, then of course they should be given that opportunity as well.
Yeah.
If they say they have something new.
So you're right. And again, they're fresh. And so we don't want to keep beating this up to death. But we talk about the mud. That was signed. It's a document, and it's something that we can go to the city attorney and say, is there something that can be brought forth and changed? Because I know we have a signed document that was signed and the council approved years ago. And, right there, yes or no? No? Well, then what's...
Well, because on that one, I'm obviously, I have some questions that I think will bring fresh insight to that particular agreement as well. So, even as you mentioned the mud, but and like I said, I do believe that should be put at the top of the list because that is a time-sensitive topic. And based on the outcome of the discussion/investigation that I called for on that part, that would determine a lot of stuff that would determine how we vote on, how we talk about a lot of stuff in regards to monies and other things like that. So, but like I said, I think I can bring a pretty fresh new perspective to the contract as far as some questions and some insights that I have that that would benefit it being talked about in public. Because I know some people are real adamant about the mud and that it's finished, it's a contract, it's done. But at the same time, as you can tell, I'm as adamant in the opposite direction. So, like I said, some people have their reasons for being pro, and some people have their reasons for being questionable about it. So, like I said, that should be allowed to be addressed in a timely manner. Because even with that, like I said, it's been 7 months. Okay.
Mr. Rivera, I saw your hand up next.
Oh, go ahead,
Mr. Oakley.
I just have two things. The first is as far as when we bring things, a memorandum to bring something up for discussions. I believe the understanding is you bring that memorandum, and we as a body say yes or no to do that. That's the first thing. The second thing, I believe it's like I have like 3 or 4 memorandums that I put forth back in April of last year or sooner, and because of what the business of the city was at the time, well, it was particularly in the budget process.
Yes.
So it was logical that the city manager handled the business of the city. One of those things, for example, was we were talking about the technology in this very room, but what needed to go first was that we had to have an assessment on buildings and some type of program, building strategic building program that needed to be, we needed to actually see, so it wouldn't have been feasible. We would have wasted money to do that. The second thing is, I believe if there's new perspective, city attorney, I believe if there's new perspective on a contract that's binding, that place of discourse would be within the court system, within civil court, not by the city. Am I correct? So if there's anyone that has a problem, because I didn't vote for the MUD either, but because a majority body of this body approved it, then that is the way that we have to go. I'm just trying to comprehend, and with this, the third thing is this right here. Some of these things that we're talking about that even address the MUD, we are doing the people who are doing this job on a daily basis, which is Mr. Olson that's leading that. He's proposing that we go through here and look at and try to sequence so that the organization can actually settle down and do some work, because we are schizophrenic right now. We changing from one thing to the next, week to week, and that's kind of hard to work under. Those conditions I believe are kind of hard to work under if you're working on something and you're stopping and say, okay, work on this. There's Mr. Olson mentioned it before. He said we can have a lot of things, but we're not going to be able to do them all at the same time. So the logical thing to be is to be put it in a logical sequence where it can be worked. And so I really believe some of those issues that we're wanting to address are contained within some of these this work. I would say this proposed work schematic here. Yeah. But I just really believe that if we have new information about a signed contract, a binding and legal contract, then the place of discourse for that is in the civil courts. That's where it is. So I don't know where we would do it as a body, because that was approved, that contract was attached to an ordinance, and that ordinance is law. Yeah. So I don't know how we pervert the law. Thank you.
Are we okay with doing this? I mean, I think, the city manager is trying to get us a priority. I don't think there's anything that he's trying to hide or anything. We're just trying to be as open as we can. So I don't know. We can do it any order you want. But right now what he's trying to do is get direction as to what him and the staff need to work on. And I think that's just being organized. I don't think that every time something new comes in, he has to drop everything. I'm sure he'll get to it. But I think, are we okay with prioritizing this again? And everybody okay with this? Yes. Mr. Herrera?
I want to recall back 6 months ago. We hired a city manager because we needed someone to manage the city. And in the last 6 months, what I hear around is, I would like to see this, I would like to see that, I would like to see this, I would like to see that. And of course, that created a big problem for the city manager per se. As far as I'm concerned, the city manager should come out with a list and tell us what you see as a city that we should do. And see what can we do to help you out, because you only been in the job for 6 months, and we changed the agenda about 20 times already. Everything that comes in, you all want to hear about it, and it's very simple. We should go out and ask the people, the people who knows, and get it over with. But sometimes we want to use this platform as a stage performance to see who do better, to see who I am, to see what I ask. When we sit in this section, is to help the city manage the city. He's the manager of the city. We should support him. I believe that list should be there. That should be the city manager's list, telling us what we need to do in order to help his mission to get this city to the next level. That's what I believe. We're talking about things that she should not even be in this conversation until the budget gets in. I just heard a citizen come up here with a bunch of lists. That's the city manager, not even quite close to what we were doing. We go out there and look for people, come and speak over here and just put the bullet in our nose. That's what we do. We got to quit doing this. Let's sit over here and see what we need to do in order to have this man do his job. And quit taking his job away. If you want his job, apply for it.
All right, so let's get back to this. Mr. City Manager, everybody gets a dot, right? 3 dots, and you just put it up there where your priority, your top 3. Number 1 is what? Green? What color is number 1?
No, they're all.
Oh, okay.
We'll just count the dots, and if the first round doesn't help us, we'll narrow it down and give you another colored dot. I think this will do it.
Mr. Olson, could I ask a question?
Sure.
Oh, yes. The way you have it outlined right now, is it a good plan for you to leave it like this and go?
It is in the priority that I think works and is probably the most important for the city to deal with.
The way you have it outlined, can we just say, let's go this way and forget about it?
Yeah, you could.
Because I think we're taking up too much time.
And that's important because we didn't make mention, but he has it in what he thinks, but he wants to know what the city council has.
Like for us to just look at your list, make a suggestion.
Probably the
say,
easiest way to do that is just put your 3 dots on the top
okay,
3 items then.
Top 3, okay. Because we
That's the
need to
easiest
just
way.
end
Because
this.
I know there are going to be people who disagree with that.
Sure, and, but like, you know, Mr. Rivera said, you're our city manager. That's what we hired you to do. And we have to take lead with you, support you. So if you.
But I also want to make sure that, that I'm doing what the council thinks.
I'm fine with it.
Just put your dots.
Yes, I put my dots all up there, forget about it.
Put your dots.
Taking up a whole hour to do this when he's already got the plan already set out. You know, is that good?
Go ahead and put your dots.
I haven't got anything yet, I'm gonna wait.
She's got them for you right up there when you go up there.
I mean, you presented this to us, and Mr. Mayor, remember in the meeting that we was together?
That's where he needs your support. Go up there and.
Yeah, I thought this was a good idea. And end it, because we're making more work for him. Forget that, you guys. Mr. Rivera, put them all up on the top.
Huh?
Come here.
She's waiting for you.
I'm coming. He set this thing up, Mr. Olson did. I like this. Yeah. So in order to go with him, he said to put everything on the top and go with it. Yeah.
Hillary.
That's what I did. I put once on top.
Me too. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Last one.
I'm going with his list. I forget about it.
Hey, Johnson. Ven acá. What do you think you were trying to tell me over there? Huh? What the hell you were trying to tell me over there? We gotta make sure. Second Wednesday, always for second Wednesday. First year. Okay, let me know so we can change it. Oh, no, I change that. What do you want to do? You want to say? Just if you can take, even if you do that.
All right, everybody got it?
We'll reorder them in that order.
So we got capital improvement to support KIST, joint meeting with KIST, protocol, which we're working on, and the last one is economic development policy, so.
Which we haven't done anything with, but we'll get on it.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
So we got direction here. All right, anything else under that? future topic discussions?
No, sir.
So moving on to our last item then, and that's DS 18-004 Planning Session, Review and Discuss Long-Term Budget Strategies.
Okay, I'm going to stand up. I'm going to stand up if that's all right, Mayor. Council, we are getting ready from a staff point of view to start our work on the FY19 budget. And there's some discussion we need to have as we move forward and get some policy guidance on some of the issues. And my intent here tonight is to simply begin a dialogue with the City Council about these issues. I'm not looking for a vote. I'm not looking for anything other than to start a discussion with the council that will carry on into future meetings. And where I'd like to start is where we left off with our budget presentation to the City Council last July, August, September. You'll recall that as we made the presentations to you on each of the funds, the last slide on each fund presentation was our long-term projection of where that fund was going to go in the future. All of the funds seemed to be in pretty good shape, and revenues were approximately equal to revenues on all of the funds going into the future, except two. One was the airport fund, and the other one was a general fund. And the general fund is the one where I have the biggest concern because it is our largest fund. It is supported by taxes as opposed to fees, and there are a couple of issues there I want to start with. So let's go to the first slide. This is the projection that we showed you last summer and last fall when we went through the budget presentation. And this is the general fund, and what it tells us is that as we go into the future and as we increase in population, we're not going to have enough money to support the services that we currently have. There's a gap between funding. And so I want to talk about that gap tonight and give you an idea of why that's happening. And then we can talk more about it as we need to. Let's go to the next slide. So that gap that you just saw is made up of these considerations. We have about 8.9 employees per 1,000 population. And as we increase population, if we maintain that standard, what it says is for every 1,000 people that we add to our city population, we should be adding 8.9 employees in order to maintain the services and the service ratios that we currently have. So that's part of the gap that you just saw there. That does not address the question, do we have the right services? Do we have the right staffing for those services? I have not been able to even begin to answer those questions yet. I can tell you that my instincts tell me that the staffing for the services we're providing is inadequate. It's challenged. But those are discussions that we will yet have to have at some point outside of this and outside of the next budget. Part of the gap is because of inflation on materials and supplies, inflation on our capital expenditures, and inflation on salaries, and inflation on health care. So that's what made up that gap that you just saw. And those are the assumptions that we used. I think you'll find them to be reasonable assumptions, as well as our population projections.
Mayor.
Mr. Johnson.
For me, I think that would be good information for me to have because what I'm looking at is not just employee to population ratio. I'm looking at technology advances and other sorts that gives us the ability to maintain that level of service. And I think there's so much more that comes to that, and not just this. Not saying you're leaving out anything. It's just I would ask that if we can get all of it, so I can better understand and look at the big picture, and not just say that we need to have 8 employees per 1,000 population to maintain the level of service, because that is not the only consideration.
Yes, I agree. And the intent of this work is basically to say, starting where we are today, if we just carry that into the future, this is what the future looks like. So that's all it's intended to say. And I agree with you. We need to look at how we're doing our work. We need to look at what work we're doing. We need to look at we need to look at all of that as time goes on. Okay, let's go to the next slide. There are some things that are very apparent to me that have not been considered yet, that are going to have a big impact on that gap. One of them is the retirement system that we currently have, and how well or unwell that's being funded right now. Another one is the street maintenance that we're doing, and the deferred amount of street maintenance work that is occurring out there. The same thing with our buildings, and then pay equity for our workforce. I want to take a few minutes and talk about each one of these things. Let's go to the next slide. If you were to add those things into the consideration, then the gap would widen and it would look like this. Let's go to the next slide. Let's go to the next group. Okay, so what we're talking about here is the number of employees per 1,000. This is a graph that we talked about last year, and I showed you last year. We have 8.94 per 1,000, and we looked at that in comparison to the benchmark cities. We're a little bit below center. Let's go to the next slide. This is how the employees are broken down between the funds in the city. Again, keep in mind that we're focusing almost entirely here on the general fund. We have 1,282 full-time equivalents. 903 of those are in the general fund. Let's go to the next slide. These are the departments in the general fund that make up those 903 and how they're distributed amongst the general fund. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so what this does is take the population projection and takes that ratio and just carries it out. So in 2018, we'd have 904 employees, and over the next 20 years, as we see the population or project the population to grow, that would take the employee numbers up to about 1,224. If we keep the same ratio and if the population grows the way we've projected it to grow. Let's go to the next slide. This breaks the general fund employee staffing down into major groups: police, fire, the general staff, which are basically all of the small departments, our community services, public works, and community development departments. And over time, how many people, the same staffing ratio that we have today, if we carried that forward, that's what it would look like. Let's go to the next one. I want to remind the council that employees do equal services. The general fund particularly is a service fund. The things that are done inside the general fund are all services, and they are people related. So the number of people you have in the general fund, there's a direct relationship on how much service you can do out of the general fund. Let's go to the next group. Okay, so I want to talk for a minute about the retirement system. And not today, but I am hoping that we can boil this down to a policy statement by the council about what you want. The TMRS, Texas Municipal Retirement System, is a statewide system that provides retirement for municipal employees across the state. It's not required that you belong to that system. There are some cities, particularly the larger ones, that have their own individual specialized retirement system. But there are 872 cities in the state, including Killeen, that is part of the Texas Municipal Retirement System. This is a hybrid system. It is a cash-based, defined benefit retirement plan rather than being a traditional formula-based defined contribution or defined benefit system. What that means is when TMRS does its actuarials, they don't do it considering, you know, hundreds of thousands of employees across the state. They break it down into 872 different actuarial studies. So each city owns its own assets and its own liabilities and its own actuarial requirements. So it is possible inside of the TMRS to have one city that is in really, really good financial condition and another city that is in really, really bad financial condition inside of the same retirement plan. So each city stands on its own by having its own actuarial assets, liabilities, and funded ratio. Each city has to make decisions regarding its contribution rate, the cost of living adjustment for its retirees, and the updated service credits. And I'll show you more about that in just a moment. Let's go to the next one. Also within that system, a city has to decide about approaching its retirement plan under one of two different approaches. One is called an ad hoc system. The ad hoc system is a short-term system. So when they do their actuarial studies, they are only thinking very short-term. 1 year, 10 years, it depends on what they're looking at, but it's all very short. And the assumption there is that you can decide not to be in the retirement system after that period of time. I personally find that to be a false assumption, because the other way of doing it is called a repeating system, and the actuarial assumption there is that you are a long-term, ongoing organization, that somebody comes to work for you this year, they will stay with you 30 years and then retire. And that will go on and on and on for as long as the city exists. And it's my opinion that that is really the kind of city we are. If you look at how well funded we are in our retirement system, if you look at it from an ad hoc perspective, we are about 85% funded this year. And it will get a little bit better over time because they will raise the rates. If you look at it from an annually repeating standpoint, we are about 69% funded, which is significantly different. Let's go to the next page. Inside of the city's plan in TMRS, an employee is required to contribute 7% of their salary. The city matches that on a 2-to-1 basis. An employee can vest after 5 years and be eligible for retirement at age 60 if they have 5 years of service, or at any age if they have 20 years of service. Let's go to the next page. This is simply for your understanding and your historical knowledge. These are the contribution rates that have been paid by the employees and by the city over the last 14 years. I will call your attention to a couple of things. First of all, if you look right there, there was a significant decrease in the amount the city contributed. That has to do with an actuarial evaluation, and somebody made the decision to reduce the contribution. Somebody in the city made the decision. I don't know who it was. The other thing I'm going to point out is that the city of Killeen actually has two retirement systems. One is the Texas Municipal Retirement System, and the other one is the Firefighters Retirement System, which is completely separate. So the firefighters have their own retirement system that is operated inside of the city. There are different contribution rates, different benefits. Everything about it is different than the TMRS system. Let's go to the next page. This slide deals with the updated service credits and the cost of living adjustments for retirees. As I mentioned, it has been the tradition, the custom, the practice of the city to make that decision every year, whether you would include the updated service credits. And what that is if you have an employee that, for example, gets a promotion, that promotion changes the amount of retirement they have, and it changes how much money has to be set aside to support that retirement. And so if you approve updated service credits, it adjusts the amount the city contributes a little bit upwards so that an additional amount of money is put into the retirement system to pay for that person's new salary, new promotion over time. And the cost of living adjustment is exactly what it sounds like. Employees who have retired do not get a cost of living adjustment unless the city council votes to pay for that cost of living adjustment during that year. The interesting thing about that is if you go for a few years and do not pay for a cost of living adjustment, and then you do pay for a cost of living adjustment sometime in the future, they go back and basically make you pay for all of that in the past. So it's one of those things for both of these things. You either pay me now or you pay me later. That's just one of the quirks of the system. But you can see in 2005, there was no updated service credit or cost of living approved, and neither was there in 2017 or 18. Let's go to the next.
Fleming.
Mr. Olson,
Yes,
I remember when we were going through this, and we asked a specific question. If the council did decide to go back and assist them in this updated service credit, they would only add so much per year. They wouldn't take it all at one time, right?
I believe they do it by adjusting the
Yes, sir.
the rate,
Yes,
which I mean, you pay a little bit higher rate each year after
Yes,
that.
sir. So we felt in our meeting that it might be a good thing if we did consider doing that to bring those up to date. So I don't know how we're going to get this on the agenda or.
I think from a policy standpoint, I mean, at the end of the day, well, I'm going to ask you several questions that eventually have to end up in a council policy.
Yes, sir.
I do think, I will say now in response to your question, I do think it's going to be better for the council to take the position that you're going to do updated service credits and cost of living and be consistent at doing it from that point forward. The inconsistency creates problems for the city by not doing it. So you need to decide if you're going to do it, and if you are, we need to figure out how to do it consistently every year.
Yes, sir. That's what I was wanting to say. If we could work this out some kind of way, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Olson, we need to look at this.
Yeah, he's got that chart that's coming up where it kind of evens. I think it's the next one there. Mr. Rivera?
Would this be something that you're probably going to look into the next budget as well?
Once the council has made a clear statement about what you want, then we will adjust the budget to meet your policy.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go to the next page.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're looking at contribution rates. This is on the ad hoc system. Up until 2018, those are actual numbers. Beyond that, they are actuarially projected numbers. In other words, we went to TMRS and said, tell us what we're going to have to pay. And these are the rates that we're going to have to pay. And what is not shown here, this projection goes out to 2044. If it went out to 2050 and 2060 and beyond, those rates would continue to rise at the same slope that they are showing here through 2044. In other words, it doesn't end at 2044. It keeps going on the same increase after that. Let's go to the next one. All right, so if you were to go to an annually repeating system, it would be what's in the green. So there would be an increase in the rates. It would be an increase in the rates. And what happens here is that we've been underfunding, according to, if you look at it from an annually repeating standpoint, we have been underfunding the retirement system for many, many years. So that raise would make up the deficit that has been created there. And then in, I can't see the date, 2038, it would go down. And it would stay down from that point forward into the future. So let's look at the next slide. This is superimposing both of those on top of each other. In the short term, it goes higher by doing the repeating system. In the long term, it gets less expensive doing the repeating system. Ultimately, the council has, and I thought, I've been in a couple of Texas cities, and they've all had this problem where they come under financial stress and they say, well, we're going to stop doing repeating and we'll do ad hoc for a couple of years, get our financial feet back under us, and then go back to repeating. I assumed when I saw this that that's what happened in Killeen, but it is not. Upon doing more research, what I found is the city of Killeen has chosen to be an ad hoc city from its inception in TMRS. So from the very get-go of having a retirement system, we have chosen to be an ad hoc city, which is a big part of the reason why I'm having this discussion with you now. In all honesty, when I saw it, to me, there's like no answer that makes sense other than we need to be a repeating city. We need to think long-term and get the long-term in line with what works for the city. That's my bias. But when I found out that it has been this way from the get-go, I realized that this is a city council decision to make. This is not a management decision. This is a policy decision. You have to tell me through your policy whether we're going to be an ad hoc city or a repeating city. And you need to tell me whether we're going to do updated service credits or whether we're going to do cost of living adjustments. That is a policy decision that you need to tell me what you want to do.
On that chart there where it says on the ad hoc after 2044, does that continue to go up? And is there a point where it maxes out or it just... So right now you have the 2044 when it's going up, you know, almost 25%. Does that continue to rise?
This blue line continues to
go up. Yeah. So is there a max or it just continues up to...
It's going to the ceiling, Mr. Mayor. It's going that side.
Just keeps going up and up, and there ain't no max.
Yes.
So in the long run, it's going to cost us big time.
It's going to cost you a lot more. Now, this number right here is about 25%, right? So let's say we have a $50 million payroll. At 25%, we're going to have to match that with $12.5 million a year. And it's going to keep going up. Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Nashke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Olson, this would not be in this upcoming budget. It would be,
No.
what, 2 or 5 years out, 3?
You know, this can has been kicked down the road for so many years. It is not urgent. It is, and maybe that's why it's been kicked down the road. It is not necessarily urgent that we fix it now. But I do think that we need to make an intentional decision about what we're going to do. And if we decide as a city that we're going to stay an ad hoc city, I think that is within our legitimate right as a city to say that. I just want to make sure that the council understands what the implications of that decision are. There are implications whichever way you go. We just need to understand what they are so that we can plan and manage accordingly.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly, but as far as for the employees, it would be best if we was doing repeating, because they have longevity in this system. Thank you.
I think there was another question.
Oh, no, Mr. Mayor, I just recall that I saw the slide here, and I think it's the end one that I was going to tie with the cost of living, going back to it. So, but I just remember that I saw a compensation pay somewhere. But I want to say something about this also. And maybe when we get into it, why taxes also is important when you do a repeating retirement, and how our employees could save money as well if we change the system. And I think that will come in one of those sections. I'm good.
Okay, let's go to the next one, Tom. All right, now I'm going to talk about the deferred street maintenance issue. Killeen has 2,191 lane miles of roads to maintain, 97 signalized intersections, 65 school flashers, various alleys, sidewalks, driveways, and other appurtenances that actually attach themselves to the street system. And we have 56 full-time employees doing the maintenance work on all of that at the current time. Let's go to the next one. This slide is intended to remind you about how the lifespan of a road. And what it says to us is, for the first several years, that road goes along and it doesn't deteriorate very rapidly. But after a few years, it deteriorates very rapidly. It also tells us that from a management standpoint, we should concentrate our maintenance efforts right here before it falls off the edge of the cliff, so to speak. Up here, we're talking about surface treatments, seal coats, and crack sealing and things of that nature. Down in this area, we're talking about mill and overlay, and in the worst cases, tearing the whole road out and reconstructing all of the base and putting the surface back on it. So the cost of maintenance is cheapest in this area here. It costs less money to maintain your road system by focusing your efforts here than by focusing your efforts down here. Let's go to the next slide. I'm going to skip over a lot of this and just make this point. You can study this and ask me any questions you may have as you look at it. This is how the pavement condition index works. As you have had in the past, you've had engineers come in here and talk to you about road condition. You may have that happen in the future. So what that really means is an engineer comes in, they do their scientific engineering work, and they give a road system a score. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, okay, I think this will work. they give the road system a score. So that score is going to be like 85 to 100 or 26 to 50, and that represents how much maintenance needs to be done on that road. So the lower the score, the more maintenance needs to be done. The higher the score, the better condition it's in. So if you had a consulting engineering firm come in and look at your road system, they'd come in and say, the overall condition of your roads is 85 or some number. That tells you basically how much maintenance you need to do. Let's go to the next slide. So understanding what that PCI, Pavement Condition Index number is really important for a city council and a city manager to understand what that really means. And again, what it means is the higher the score, the better condition your roads are in. The lower the score, the worse condition your roads are in. And you can study that at your leisure. Let's go to the next one. So we actually had a company come in 2013 and look at the condition of our pavement, and this is how they broke it. This is how they broke it down. We've got 250 miles that are scored 85 or higher. We've got 234 miles between 61 and 85, 8 miles between 40 and 60, and a little under 2 miles that are less than 39 reconstruction. And the total cost in 2013 of bringing all of that up to an acceptable condition was just short of $17 million.
Mr. Oakley.
Yes, Mr. Olson, with that, taking in consideration, I guess, inflation, what would that be now, and what would it be sometime down the road?
I'm looking at my staff to help me with the number.
Based on the numbers that we've been dedicating towards street maintenance, right now that 16 million is probably closer to 35 million. And again, one thing to keep in mind here is the number of miles mentioned there are center line miles, which you heard previously in the slideshow was lane miles. The difference being one measures the lanes, which is 12 foot wide, and one is the length of any given roadway. So if you add inflation, add deferred maintenance in, we're probably closer to 35 million.
And here's the problem. Here's the consideration that we have to take. Remember back a couple of slides to that curve that goes along flat for a little while and then it starts to drop off very quickly. The longer we wait to address this problem, the more expensive it gets. It's not a straight line depreciation. It's an exponential depreciation that's going to be hitting us. And what we know here is 5 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. So what we're looking at on this slide, this is the amount of funding that it would take to keep proper maintenance on our roads, according to that 2013 study. And the dark blue line is actually what we have funded over that period of time. And it's been kind of up and down. It looks a little bit like a roller coaster. And so that's kind of the issue that we're dealing with. What we need to do, from my perspective, is we need to figure out how to budget not like a roller coaster, but like a straight line. We need to figure out how to get a constant amount of money going into our streets so that we can keep up with them.
Mr. Rivera.
Sir, this is including the new roads that we just built, a new street, a highway that we just did in 190 in Rosewood, and have you count
I think this accounts for streets up through 2013. I do not believe it counts for streets after that.
We're still missing all the other ones then.
Yeah, this information needs to be updated.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah. Let's go to the next slide.
And I just want to say, as part of our previous budget, I think if I remember right, and I know we've done it less this past year, but every year when we did our budget, didn't we designate like $750,000. And I remember when we did this study, they came back and said that it wasn't enough, you know, it should be more like $2 million or something like that.
Yes.
And so I think this past budget cycle, it wasn't 750, right? It was less than that.
It was about 1.6.
400, yeah.
About
so
300,000.
So instead of going up, we've been going down. We've been going backwards, so.
Right. Okay, now I'm going to talk about building maintenance. Let's go to the next slide. So we have a pressing issue, which is the R22 refrigerant. We are under legal mandate to change all of that out. But that's not the single issue. We do business out of 48 buildings in the city. You know, a lot of cities have consolidated that. They have a city hall, and most of the functions are in the city hall. They might have a public safety building and a public works building. We do business out of 48 buildings, and what that means is we have 48 roofs. We have more than 48 heating and air conditioning systems, because most buildings have more than one system attached to it. And we have 48 parking lots to take care of. And I'm just talking about the big maintenance here. I'm not talking about the daily repairs and the daily janitorial type service. I'm talking about the big ticket items where, when, you know, roofs are very expensive, and when they fail, you got to fix them, that kind of thing. So that's what we're talking about here. Let's go to the next slide. So coming back to the R22 issue, the point here is that within the next couple of years, we have been working on this slowly, but there is additional amounts of money that we are under legal mandate to address, and you see that here. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Ms. Fleming, you had a question?
I just wanted to kind of bring back a memory that we were also discussing when we talked about the needs on the air conditioning in the 48 buildings that we do own, and trying to bring maybe one or two big buildings under one roof, and that way we will only have 3 roofs to fix and maybe 1 big air conditioner later on down the road, you know, in our plans. And I think that's what we were discussing also, is that bring everything under one roof, you know, just have maybe 3 big buildings that we'll be responsible for.
Thank you, Ms. Fleming. To me, again, it's one of those issues that only makes sense. We need to be looking at consolidating city functions under as few roofs as we can in terms of, you know, our long-term plan. We did look at a 10-year plan in very rough terms, and but you know, that's something that the city council needs to weigh in on in terms of policy direction. And at some point, we need to have a discussion about where we're going with this stuff. And, all right.
Thank you, sir.
No, and I think that's important, because I know that's one of the questions we did ask the city manager as far as our maintenance. If you take into account all the maintenance and everything that's required for all these buildings, it actually costs a lot more than just building a building. So over the long term, it's more cost effective, so.
Probably so. Here's some more factual data on buildings and systems that we have. Let's go to the next slide. We do know that over the next 20 years, we have 27 roofs that will need to be replaced. Let's go to the next slide. And here's a list of other things that need to be taken care of. I guess the one thing, I don't want to go over that in detail, but down at the bottom, right here, we know that we're funding about 20% of what our current needs are for major building maintenance. Let's go to the next page. That's a summary of everything we've said. Let's go to the next section.
Mayor.
Okay.
Mr. Johnson?
What's the status on the open space at First Baptist since the academy moved out of there? Are we moving forward with that?
We have moved several city functions into that building now, and it is the proposed site of a future emergency operations center. It actually would serve us very well in that respect, and that still leaves a little bit of space in there to be used up otherwise. All right,
That
so
piece of land
I'm sorry?
across the street, is that still on the market, or
The one on W.S. Young, which one?
the one that we agreed that we was going to put it on the market for sale?
Oh, that's that one on W.S. Young there by the,
National Guard Armory?
yeah, by the Special Events Center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it still up for sale?
I'm not sure I know.
We had several properties up for sale, I think we were discussing, and I don't know if we've ever moved forward to it, but.
Council did decide.
Huh?
I mean, there were several pieces of property
Yeah, I remember.
We did.
Because we had a possible buyer on it, but that didn't pan out, I know that.
it was spare time.
Huh?
Spare time.
No, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that sale fell through. I don't remember all the details, I just know it did not happen.
But we're not selling any of those other properties yet, or are we still considering selling it?
I'm gonna have to find out and give you a report. I don't know off the top of my head. Okay, so the next major topic I want to talk about is employee compensation. Again, we've got just shy of 1,300 employees. We are a service organization. We expect our employees to perform, and they expect us to pay them for what they do. So compensation is a key issue. The council has dealt with this in the past, partially. It's an issue that just keeps repeating itself. And I am not prepared to go into much of detail. We've started to study it, and I will have some recommendations for you, but it's going to take some months to be able to get to that. So I'm just introducing the topic tonight. I am not suggesting that we have to do anything about it, other than try to keep it from getting any worse than it is. I'm not saying we have to fix it now. I think that in order to fix this issue, we've got to do things different than we've ever done them before, because if we don't do it with an eye to the future and a permanent solution, whatever we put into it today, it will be out of date again in a couple of years. And I'd like to find a solution that does not do that. So I'm asking for time on this one to really figure out how to properly address it. Let me tell you generally what the problem is. Let's go to the next. I guess that's probably the only slide in this one, right? All right, so we look at our workforce and we divide it into two general categories. One of them is our general employees and the other is our civil service employees. The civil service employees are basically our police and fire officers. And from what we know about the marketplace, and we're talking about a real marketplace here. We're not talking about a phony marketplace where we're comparing ourselves to big cities that don't have relationships to us. We're talking about a market that is immediate to the city of Killeen, so that when somebody decides they're going to leave our employment, they're going to go to work at a city in our marketplace. They're not going to move across the state. They're not going to necessarily move to Dallas or even Austin for that. We're talking about a relevant marketplace. We know that we're about 7.5% below that market for our civil service employees. And we know that we're on average about a little bit more than 13% below the market for our general employees. Now, for the general employee market, there's a big variation there. We've got a lot of employees in that group, and there's a large group of them that are on the lower end of the pay scale that are as much as 30% below the marketplace. So when you look at this 13%, that is an average number. Some people are affected far more than that in order to get to that average. So that's basically what we know about about our compensation. It's an issue that, because we're a service organization, because we rely so much upon the people who provide that service, we need to figure out how to create a permanent fix for this compensation issue. And I think what that means is totally re-examining and restructuring our pay system. And that is going to take a substantial amount of time to do the kind of homework and research and testing, market analysis, all of that. It's going to take us quite a bit of time to be able to do that work. But I do think it needs to be done. Is that the end of it?
Mr. Johnson?
During this process, are you able to do a employee survey or sessions so you can hear directly from them? I know pay is important, but there's also other alternatives like shift flexibility and work from home, or wherever the case. There are other reasons why people leave or stay. So
yes, we do exit interviews for people who are leaving and gather that data, and there are many reasons why they stay and why they go, and it is not just compensation. And we have not done a comprehensive employee survey since I've been here, at least, but we do exit interviews on people who are leaving.
Is that something you can do before they leave? I mean, I know exit interviews are important, but if we can do
I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea
to keep them here.
I think as we do this study and look at this, I think we absolutely need to do that.
Mrs. Nashking?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Olson, my short term being on the council, I had the opportunity to visit different departments as I continue to tour each department to talk to the department heads and also the staff. Thanks to Dr. Ferris, she took me to a couple of places this week. We're going to continue some more. But not only that, what about the employees that once they max out and we do not give them a COLA? That was another concern. What incentive, other than thank you for a job well done, you got a temporary on your evaluation, but wait, you're maxed out. That's another consideration that I'm not telling you what to do, but
no,
nowhere to go. So they may just say, hey, I can go here, get more incentives, and move on.
That's part of the reason I say I think we need to rethink the entire classification compensation system and redesign it in a different way. And I have some pretty definite ideas about where we ought to start, what we ought to look at, but so I do think we need to look at that, and we need to find a plan that will actually work for that.
Thank you, sir.
The other thing that's happened to our compensation system is that because we have been 13% below marketplace, and in some classifications more than that, employees and department heads are very creative. They always find ways to reclassify jobs or fundamentally manipulate the system to help people who deserve more money get more money. And over the course of years of that happening, what happens is it corrupts your system, your pay and your classification system. And I will tell you, I think, I've looked at this enough to tell you, I think our system is so far out of whack, it just needs to be rebuilt.
Mr. Harris.
So I'm just going to ask a question again. I asked it in our meeting, but I just want to see if there's any other thoughts. But when we're discussing all the things that we need to fix and the monies that we would need to fix it, and even with the current things that we're looking at as far as funding, and we talk about the cost of living in Killeen. I remember I asked a question. I just want to see what anybody else has any comments on this. But I asked the question of, with everything we have to do that needs to be done, even so, the things we put off that needs to be done, how do we keep from becoming, as I said before, the highest taxing and fee-charging city in the entire area? How do we do that with everything that we need to do, and having issues with creating new sources of revenue? I mean, how do we do that beyond taxing and fees? Because I don't want to become the highest taxing and fee charging city in the whole, KTM area or anything like that, because even as we talk about Killeen growing, that right there can slow us down. That has potential to slow us down. And so, like I said, anybody have any thoughts? But what are our, what can we do to keep from doing that?
Is that a rhetorical question?
I mean, if you came with something new, but you got something.
Mr. Okrie.
Yeah, I got an idea and a suggestion. We all move to Utopia. Because that's the only place where you're gonna go and find where you don't pay for anything and everything is free. And everything that's free is not free. That's the only place we're gonna find it. Everybody pack up, we're moving to Utopia.
Mr. Rivera.
No, Mr. Olson, I want to thank you so much for your presentation. I just got a little statement to make. Earlier today, during the bond section, we had a citizen concern, which came out, I would say, between 90 and 100% of the thing that you just point out to us that we need to do. Hope and everybody have the opportunity to express what they want to, because they have the citizen and they have an opportunity to express themselves. But the citizens also should know that you're attacking this also, that you're working on these issues. So the same way they see it, you're seeing it also, you're working on it, but it's up to us to fix it also, okay? And I agree with Mr. Okrie, nothing is for free.
Mrs. Nash King.
Okay. I can understand what, sir, that Mr. Harris is saying, and also our other two councilors. We got a situation, and it's not going to go away. So we will have to address this. It's just the bottom line up front. And I'm looking at the wall, what we have prioritized for you to do, and I'm looking at this. It's very depressing. On this side, sir. We back over here. Mm-hmm. And I know you have a plan, and I could be wrong, but other than, and correct me, anybody, other than taxes, impact fees, or cutting services, those are only our three options. And this council,
pretty much.
I'm sorry. This council, we're going to have to make some hard decisions for the good of the taxpayers and the individuals that's taking the time to put all of this information out. It's not just because we got slides, take them home, look at them. This is a decision-making by this council. And I'm hoping as we move forward as a council, agree to disagree. But before we move forward, we should start making decisions. I'm not saying rush a decision, but no, that the bottom line is we will have to make some tough decisions on how we're going to move forward if we're not bringing in revenue to make this happen, because this city will not stand still. We may not make a decision, but the city will move forward. Am I correct or wrong, sir?
No, I certainly think you're right. I have an obligation under the charter to inform the council, to advise the council of the financial condition and future needs of the city. And as I've told you before, I think that before we can solve a problem, we need to understand the problem. So the intent of this was to start a dialogue, and I would anticipate that we should talk more fully about each one of these 4 or 5 areas and have more discussion about it until the council is has enough understanding that you're comfortable moving forward and saying, for example, in the retirement, we want to stay an ad hoc city or we want to become a repeating city. You need to understand that well enough to be able to say that. And it needs to be an intentional decision. Okay? And if we ignore it, it'll just keep going the way it's always gone. And And I'm not sure that's good for us. I think it's our obligation as public servants and public officials to make intentional decisions about what our future should be. And they're not easy. I agree with you. They are hard decisions. The easy thing to do is ignore it and don't talk about it, and let some future councilman and some future city manager worry about it when the roof caves in. But that is not the responsible thing to do, and I just think we need to decide what we're going to do in relation to these things. It's pretty much that simple.
Anybody else? A lot of challenges coming up. We still got a couple more items. So.
I just want to say, those items there is the one that right now we should be discussing. And to be honest with you, we may need to look to have city council meeting twice a week, if we have to, because that's what I see. I don't think this once a week is going to make it. I think this is something that we have to do twice a week.
All right. Well, it just comes down to the funds, as we all know. Those are the tough decisions, because all this stuff is easy. It's just the hard part is how do you pay for all of this? Mm-hmm. And so that's the challenge that we have here in 2018. So.
Saturday.
Yeah.
On Saturday.
So if there's nothing else for the city manager on this issue, we only got a couple of more things, and these are just council member future request items, RQ 18-001, future items request. And so we just need a consensus whether to move forward on any of these. Request street lighting ordinance and modification. This one, I guess, I always was under the impression, and I'm probably wrong, that Encore did the street lighting, right?
No.
So, Mr. Harris?
Yep, I'll just say this. I'll just read my quick intro first. It said there was a time in Killeen once Killeen was considered once more of a rural type of community. Street lights and the overall sense of safety was not a huge consideration, as the level of concerns regarding crime and population were not yet at a point to really consider adjusting the ordinance throughout the years on a consistent basis. Welcome now to a year where the population of Killeen has expanded to approximately 140,000. The crime rates have increased to levels that have garnered regional and even state level attention in regards to crime in general, but more specifically towards our more violent crimes. The time has now come to make a change to our ordinance regarding both the spacing of street lights in our neighborhoods and their overall places of required installation. Our current ordinance states that they must be at every corner or 1,200 feet apart. This distance can accommodate up to 20 homes. A distance of unlit travel in our neighborhoods today is unacceptable and needs immediate modification in order to ensure that our future neighborhoods will receive safe and adequate lighting. The dollar cannot be deemed more important than our residents' safety. Your vote to approve the moving forward of this agenda item will be a vote for another avenue of safety for yours and my current and future residents and constituents. And one of the questions I asked, I meant to take some pictures of it, possibly have them up, but when I asked the question, what is the distance between the lamps on our walking trails? When you go to Lions Club Park, when you go down there by Robinette, off the walking trail down there, the lights are just boom, boom, light, 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 light. And that's for safety. The city deemed that necessary for safety, having areas well lit. But yet in our neighborhoods, we have them up to 1,200 feet apart. And that's places where people walk as well. So I believe that this is an important item that needs to be moved forward because we need to go ahead and amend that. And at current, the developer is responsible during their build for initializing, putting the lights in. Of course, Encore puts them in, but the developer is responsible for them. And Encore is responsible for maintaining them once that is done. Okay, so the developer is responsible initially. Encore installs, maintains. And so, but at the same time, like I said, I think this is important that we go ahead and modify this ordinance and shorten the distance between streetlights in our future neighborhoods. May not be much we can do about our current neighborhoods right now because we're not going to go in and dig up sidewalks unless y'all want to do something, do it. But otherwise, this is an important step for our future neighborhoods as far as safety in regards to people being able to feel safe in their own neighborhoods.
Okay. Mr. Okrie.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Prior to Mr. Olson becoming the public director of the director of public works, the previous public Director of Public Works, to provided him a study that was done on the city of Detroit. If everybody knows the background, what happened with the city of Detroit, but it was talking about lighting up Detroit, and in that, one of the things that were taken into consideration was the efficient lighting, the LED lighting, and I learned a few things with that. You can do a lot with light fixtures. You can have ambient music. You can do video. You can do whatever you want with them, but that comes with a price. And I asked, I believe at the time we had like 3,800 or 3,900 light posts in our system, in our network. I agree with what Mr. Harris is saying, but I believe one thing, the very first thing we're going to have to look at and find out is our agreement with Encore, because right now, under the condition that we have, we can't be efficient. We can't be efficient in our lighting. So we're talking about putting up, it's the difference between the LED lighting, or you're talking about the conventional, what we have out there now. And it may be that with the ordinance, with an updated LED lighting, that you can do more lighting with the infrastructure that is already present and available. But that's one of the steps that I hope citizens don't think that we're going to get lights next year, because it's just not going to come that fast for obvious reasons. We're talking, I think at the time, just to see something, it was more along the line of $12 million. So now that's something that we might want to consider as a council, if that's something that should go on a ballot initiative. And I believe as a council as a whole, a lot of these big ticket items that we talk about, as far as public, the things that citizens are wanting, not what we must do, but the things that citizens are wanting, like that, we need to put those before the people. And then what it does is, which way it goes, if it fails or if it's approved. If it's approved, guess what? That is the impetus for us to now make the arrangements with those 2 or 3 pennies or whatever it's going to cost for us to do that over a period of time. So, but that's something that it's going to have. I agree, but can we address it now? And that's
there.
It's up there.
No, I said put it up there. I guess.
Well, that's something.
Priority up there.
Well, that's in capital.
Add that to that list.
That's capital improvements, but that's some things we talk about that, and we setting aside different things. With this goes back to even when we're talking about reserve funds, and we need to put programs or whatever we're going to do. Beside that, we need to obligate or commit within the reserve fund, because that's not no free money. That's tax revenue. So we need to obligate the people's taxes toward these things. But if we do it, if we're going to do that, it works in the benefit of any council that's going to now and in the future to say, you know what, this is a mandate from the citizen. So I don't know where we get, and I don't know if we can verify that amount of money. But I don't see where we're going to even get $1 million.
So right now, I think the thing is, do we want to move forward it and get all the details later? So, Mr. Kilpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe it is an important issue, but I believe it's an issue that would take in the 2019 budget deliberations that the city manager is undergoing now. He would do the very same thing before it would be brought to us to discuss on the council. He has to do his homework, as Councilman Hoker has said, and give us a ballpark of what it would, before we'd even have to discuss it. And really, it is a budgetary discussion. It's a safety discussion, but it's also a budgetary discussion. We have a balanced budget right now. In order to start anything on this, we have to determine where we're going to get the funds, what services are going to be cut out of this balanced budget in order to do that. That should be done in conjunction with the FY19 budget discussions, which are starting the process right now. And I would ask that we would give the city manager the instructions to include that in his budget discussions, deliberations. So he's doing simultaneous work and not taking on another separate project to divide staff and everything. And the legal would also have to tie into what would be the financial and physical impact of our contract with Encore.
Ms. Nash King.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The question was asked earlier tonight, why are we going back through this process again? And it's clear that we have a vision, we talked about it, and we have it on the wall. My concern, Mr. Mayor, is now we're asking the city manager to take his staff. Now, we made it clear, the vision was plain here. 100% for lights. I think we need them. As a matter of fact, I called the city and tried to get one out in front of my house. And they told me I had to pay for it. And I was like, okay. But my house is built. And I agree with everyone that as we move forward, that should be one of our priorities. When do it stop? My concern, Mr. Mayor, are we going to really focus on the 4 4s? Or are we going to ask in the budget coming up to add something else with no revenue coming in? I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about it, but right now, we're talking about a bond. We have major issues that have been brought to us for the last 3 or 4 council meetings. I'm just asking my fellow colleagues, can we focus on one major issue? And the lights is great. We know we don't have the funds for it, but I'm just concerned that we continue to stretch our limited staff so far out there. Will we even be prepared to even have something to discuss that's concrete, that we have facts, we have research on the budget? Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
All right. Anybody else? Mr. Harris.
I was going to say, with this agenda item proposal, that, it's primarily about, as far as changing the ordinance to require that more streetlights be put in at a closer distance in neighborhoods, and that responsibility would fall to the developer. Now, of course, we would have to pay the electric bill in the end, but the paying for the streetlights, putting them in, that falls on the developer. But I think, like I said, that the focus is on shortening the distance, changing the ordinance to shorten the distance between the streetlights. I like Councilmember O'Crea's idea as well as the lighting. And as part of the ordinance, this is the type of lighting that you need to have installed in there as well, because that can be part of the ordinance. That's the type of lighting that needs to be installed in there. Encore will install whatever lighting is required to be put in there, because, like I said, that's going to be in the ordinance as far as the development of that community or anything like that. But as I said, Encore is responsible for the maintenance of the light, but the developer is responsible for putting the light in, so that cost will not be ours as far as putting the lights in. But the electric bill, of course, I think that's going to be us. But that's what it's supposed to be.
I think we got to, just decide whether we want to go forward and get all those details, because there's so much involved in that, and we don't know what that is at this time, if it's just an ordinance or not. And so if we decide that task the staff to move forward on that task, then, that's a choice the council makes. Or do we need to do ad hoc committees or whatever? So with that, I just need a consensus. If those that want this to move forward, just raise your hand so I can see.
Could I say something before?
Go ahead, Ms. Fleming.
Yeah, I need to say something. And
Sure.
I'm looking at that very first thing up there on the board. What does it say?
Public safety.
It says safety. Okay, everybody close your eyes. Suppose we turn out every light in Killeen. What would that do? Think about it. We're going to turn out every light. If we don't have lighting here in Killeen, we're going to be in trouble with the bad guys and everything else, and crime's going to increase. And here we talk about not addressing the lights here in Killeen. To me, that's bogus. Nobody asked to do this project right now. This is something that we need to bring up later on, like the city manager says. We do need to address the lighting here. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but we do need to do this. You turn out all the lights here in Killeen, what do we have? We're going to have a major catastrophe. And if we don't start working on some of these lights, which that's one of my biggest problems here now too, that people's calling about no lights. And it's dangerous not to have proper lights in this city that we're growing. Like every one of us has said tonight, okay, the city is growing. If the city doesn't grow, then the lights got to grow. Every time somebody has, like when person puts up his houses down there, isn't he going to put lights down there? He's got to, for safety purposes. Every time you build a house, you've got to have lighting. So let's don't act like this is not a major problem, people. It's a major problem here. And we've got to vote on it, that we need to continue this and not drop it down like it doesn't mean a thing. And I'm sorry to get emotional, but I think we need to really look at this realistically, because it's safety. Lighting is important for our children and everybody else. Okay, we had a discussion last time about letting the kids stay out till 11 o'clock. Okay, if there's no lights out there, those kids are going to be in the darkest places doing their little bad things. The crooks are going to be out there doing their little bad things. So we've got to concentrate on lighting. I got to go down because I'm excited.
All right, let's get back to taking this vote. See if you change anybody's mind.
I have a question. Is there a lot of work put into it besides doing a public hearing and then seeing what the electricity cost is per pole? Because he's just asking for an ordinance amendment. He's not asking for old developments, but he's looking for going forward. I mean, if it's right now, it's required 1,200 foot in between, and he just wants to go 600
I think it would be pretty easy for us to come back with a report that says how much we spend on lights now and how much it is per light. We could tell you that fairly easily.
But the study, you're talking about the future lights, because we're talking about new development, right?
Yes,
so how much would the cost on that, would that be? Not what the cost is now. So.
Yeah, that would take a little bit more work.
Yeah, because I think that's what he's talking about.
I'm just looking for it. No, just the estimated cost of electricity. As you said, the developer is responsible for putting in installing the poles. So just going forward, I have no problem amending the ordinance, but I would like a public hearing and input from the stakeholders. I mean, that should be pretty simple. I think we're making a bigger deal out of this than it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, let's just continue. We need to get a vote here so we can move on to the next item. So, Mr. Rivera.
I got a question for the chief of police.
Andale.
No, I'm not done. For those city council who do not know, I spent 4 years in criminal investigation. And as a criminal investigator, I find something out very important. Number one, major crime comes from drugs most of the time. Number two, they come from domestic violence. I'm not saying that we don't have a problem about lighting, because I think we do have a problem in our city, just like every other city. But I am tired of listening to the people saying major crime is happening in Killeen when it's happening in Temple and Waco and every other places. Chief, if most of the crime, major crime in these cities is caused by what? If you could say.
They're probably influenced by drugs.
The second one, what is it?
Probably domestic.
And that's what I'm getting into. Those crimes sometimes we cannot prevent. It's not the lights that's going to do the comeback in crime. Yes, we do need those lights out there. I'll be the first one to say it. But this is a budget process. Thank you, Chief.
Can I ask my question real quick?
Okay, we want to get this vote out, so.
Chief,
Mr. Mayor, point of order. We're discussing this item now.
Yeah, and we just need to go ahead and vote.
We need to be consensus.
We either need to move this forward or not. So
I was just going to say, everybody was discussing it. That's the thing about it. I just did because she discussed it as well.
I think you've had a lot of opportunities there, too.
No.
So let's go ahead and to vote one more time. All those in favor of moving this forward, raise your right hand, or raise your hand, or all those opposed.
Wow. Okay.
So 4-3. Item does not move forward.
I don't want to see nothing on the agenda about lighting no more.
All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Request neighborhood and main roadway street line marketing. Who's that?
That's
Mr.
me.
Harris?
Yep, that's me. All right, okay, once again, let's try it. Okay, the absence of painted street markings is an accident and an invitation to litigation waiting to happen. I understand that the quote-unquote sins and misdirections of our city's past has allowed us to allow aspects of our city to fall into almost, if not altogether, a neglected state, no matter the size or level of importance in view one assigns to it. The fact is that time has now forced us to address some of them. Street and the road markings is one of them. There are roads where markings no longer exist and are not categorized as the people should, and are not categorized as, quote unquote, the people should know better. Areas of travel. Some roads to the unfamiliar commuter of a some roads to the unfamiliar commuter of a road will lead them head on into a turn lane traveling in the opposite direction, while others can cause them to lose track of the road altogether during nighttime and or rainy weather. Whether the streets or roads are owned by the city, county, or state, the markings need to become a top priority. That's it.
So do we want to do anything? Is that what is it that we want to do here? See if we want to put lines in the street as a city?
Yep.
And we don't we, Mr. City Manager, don't we do that as part of our maintenance? Don't we do that already to our streets as part of our maintenance?
It's part of our it is part of our maintenance program, but as we talked a few minutes ago, we're not doing what we need to be doing with our maintenance.
Yeah.
Including with street lines. I mean, that's street lines, markings, signs. All of that is part of that underfunding and deferred maintenance issue that we talked about earlier.
So, Mr. Kilpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an item which I believe that, like we've requested updates on. I don't know that we would say requested that they be done, but I do believe we need an update on it. It won't hurt us to gain knowledge about what is it going to do to cost. We've asked updates on sidewalks for American Disability Act type deals from City Manager, and I don't have an issue in supporting us getting it on the agenda to ask.
What is it that we're asking? What is it that we want?
To move it forward for discussion and even directing the city manager into, I guess if you want to doing an assessment on our current status of street markings in the city.
Just the markings, not the streets, because
the markings, yes, the markings, the paintings, because he already said the maintenance wasn't being done. So
Mrs. Nash King.
It's be important.
Sir, Mr. City Manager, if that is a concern, we didn't mark it over there. That's one thing. The second thing is, do we have the financial means to paint the streets? Is there a reason we did not do it? Do we have the funding to do it? Even if we move it forward, can we pay for it? We agreed we wouldn't make decisions if we do not have the funds to pay for it. Do we have the money to pay for it?
Well, no. The short answer is no, we don't. But that is why we have deferred maintenance issues on the streets. I mean, that's why we have all the deferred maintenance on the streets that we have. It's because we haven't had enough money to do everything we need to do.
Mr. Rivera.
If I'm not mistaken, so you could help me out. There's a new unit in the street department that's going to be doing this, right, or what? Can you answer that? Because I believe we got something now going that we never had before.
If you recall in our fiscal year 18 budget presentations, we did mention that we started a new program this year that's a pavement marking program. We took, of our $300,000 that we had funded, $90,000 is dedicated to pavement markings. In order for us to complete the entire city in a 5-year cycle, it takes $200,000 per year dedicated towards pavement markings.
Go ahead, question, sir.
Mr. Harris.
Since we did that, how many markings have been done so far?
We are currently working a plan, and we have to bid these items out, and we are going with the worst first scenario. Elms Road from Clear Creek to a little west of Fort Hood Street, is one, W.S. Young has a priority from Stagecoach all the way up to Rancier, and then we have one other roadway I can't recall off the top of my head. But nothing has been completed to date, but we're in the third month of this fiscal year.
Okay, so you are just doing an assessment right now, just kind of looking at things right now?
We're assessing, we're going to go out for bids on striping programs in the near future.
Plus the weather has to be a certain temperature.
Right, and we need weather to cooperate when we're in low temperature time periods. You can't stripe or it'll come up.
Okay. All right.
So what do we want to do with this?
It's already in place.
Mr. Harris?
Well, let's see. I will say this. All right, so since we have something, all right, since we have something that's.
Can you, and that's what I was talking about earlier, if you can just kind of stay in touch with Mr. Olson and kind of give you an update.
Yeah, I'll check.
And I think this is one of the items
I'll check on that, yeah, but like I said, we'll, I'll just, like I said, just keep checking, but if we have something in place, then, hopefully we can get that started pretty soon, because like I said, it is an accident or litigation waiting to happen at some point in time. If we don't address it in a timely manner, God forbid, but.
And anytime, and that's why anytime an issue like that, those are questions we could have had answered prior.
Yeah, so now, but like I said, with that one, I'll keep in contact with Mr. Olson there on the progress of that, and, but like I said, I am still glad I brought it forward, though, because it needed to be talked about and addressed, and this information come out, because even as people were saying, oh, this and that, I doubt they actually knew that what was going on right now. So, but.
Mr. Okrie.
But, Mr. Mayor, I don't know anything, because I don't work here every day. That's Mr. Olson's job. That's his job. It was something going on Veterans Memorial between W.S. Young and 10th Street, and I almost called Mr. Olson today, and I said, you know what? It's probably something we approved already. That's the city manager's job. If we want to do his job, I think we need to go. If anybody want to do the job, they need to go be a city manager. But
that was our last item, Mr. Okrie. We're going to just say, that's done. We're finished.
We discussed this already.
All right, he's done. He's got it. Motion to adjourn. All those in favor of adjourn, just say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.